Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Barnstable Town Council meeting on May 4th, 2023. At this point in time, I would like to announce that this is being televised on Channel 18 and being streamed on our website, and I would like to ask if anybody is recording, and if you are recording, to make yourself known. Okay. Not seeing any, thank you. Roll call, please. Town Clerk and Quirk.
Councilors, Atzelis.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Cullum.
Here.
Cusack.
Present.
Rapp Grassetti.
Present.
Levesque.
Here.
Ludke.
Here.
Mendes.
Here.
Neary.
Here.
Schnepp.
Here.
Shaughnessy.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Steinhilber.
Here.
That is a full complement, 13.
Thank you. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you can remain standing for the moment of silence. Thank you. Before we have a moment of silence, I would just like to recognize that today is the National Day of Prayer. And so if you feel so inclined, obviously it is the moment of silence, but also to pray for our country, our state government, and our town, and elected officials and administration. Thank you. Thank you. It's also Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for the reminder. Have to give credit where credit's due. Now it is time for public comment. If anybody here in the room would like to come to the podium, if you could sign in, please, announce your name, and you will have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Jim Danhauser, a resident of Cotuit. With respect to item 2023-180, I urge the council to vote in favor of the proposed transaction between the town and the Cotuit Fire District involving the property at 140 Old Oyster Road. The property consists of 13.5 acres, including the school building, parking areas and grounds, forested woodlands, and recreational assets. Those assets include tennis courts, a baseball diamond, and a large open field. The property is very important to Cotuit. It's immediately up gradient from one of the wells that provides drinking water to our village. The school building is actually within 800 feet of the wellhead. Nearly all of the land is in the zone of contribution to the well field. The prospect of residential development in this area was of significant concern for its potential impact on the well field, as seen in a January 2021 letter from the Cotuit Water Commissioners to the Town Council. Also, the recreational elements represent the only generally available recreational land in the entire village and are frequently used. And many people in the village use the wooded areas for walking. The town's Asset Management Advisory Committee had recommended that the building be demolished and a portion of the property be put up for development by creating and selling buildable lots. But given the concerns that have been expressed about the well field, it also recommended that this action be deferred while discussions were held with the fire district to see if an alternative could be put in place for an intergovernmental transfer involving the property. The Cotuit Prudential Committee formed an ad hoc committee to deal with this. That committee, of which I'm a member, held a public information session outlining the situation and presenting 2 options: take no action and allow the town to determine how it would proceed with respect to the property, with us bringing whatever pressure we could bear on that, or explore that intergovernmental transfer. The clear sense of those in attendance at that meeting was to pursue that transfer. We then suggested to town management the outlines of a transaction in which the district would accept the transfer of the school building and the immediately surrounding property, as well as the wooded acreage. But we would have the town retain ownership of the recreational assets, as our district simply doesn't have the management infrastructure to deal with those. But contractual limits would be put on what could be done with those recreational assets in terms of construction, land treatment, et cetera, to protect the well field. At our 2021 annual district meeting, this approach was presented to the voters. It was explained that a recommendation about demolition of the building or alternative use had not been reached, and that therefore the downside fiscal impact would be that the district would have to shoulder the cost of demolition. That's not a small lift, given the size of the district and its tax base. Nonetheless, the concept of the transaction was resoundingly approved. The matter you now have before you tracks with that proposal. It removes from the town the need to deal with the building itself and accomplishes the primary objectives of our district: limit the risk that development would pose to the well field, maintain the recreational assets, and establish through the conservation restriction firm contractual limits on what could be done with those recreational assets in the interest of well field protection. I thank you for your time, and I urge you to approve the transaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Danhauser. Thank you. Just want to say thank you.
Jackie Barton, Katuitt. I just want to echo everything that Jim just had to say. We've worked diligently with town staff, Andy Clyburn, and David Anthony, most specifically, who've worked diligently to help make this happen, and it's taken 2 years to get to this point. But we're happy to finally be here, and I just want to say we hope that you will support this endeavor because it's very, very important to the village of Katuitt. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room like to speak during public comment? Okay, not seeing any. Does anybody like to participate remotely? Director Poyant.
There is no public comment on Zoom.
Okay. It is time now for response to public comment. Anybody like to respond? Councilor Lucky, please.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to Jim and to Jackie. And I think the way you presented, especially Jim, my goodness, this is the way I'd hope everybody would be a model for all the citizens. When you come together as a group of citizens from a village and you come up with a plan and you work with the town in a very positive, productive way, this is what you can accomplish, is a solution that's really accepted by the community. So I just think it's fantastic, and it would be an example to others to emulate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lucky. Councilor Rapcorsetti, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Jim and Jackie. And I also want to recognize Mark Lynch. The three of them served at the largesse of the Katuitt Fire District Prudential Committee and met a lot of hours with the town. And thanks to Mr. Clyburn and David Anthony and Mark Ells and everyone else. But we'll speak at that on the agenda item. But absolutely, I will support this item.
Thank you, Councilor Rapcorsetti. Anybody else on this side? Comment? Anybody to my left? Okay. Not seeing any. I would close public comment. And now it is time for Town Manager Communications. And just a quick announcement. The Town Manager Report has been pre-recorded and is available to Town Council and the public. The report will be prepared in written form and posted on the Town Manager's website as in the past. The Town Manager and staff will be available to answer any questions regarding the report as presented. The Town Manager Communications for the period of April 28th to May 4th, 2023 included an update on, number 1, the Budget Action Calendar, number 2, reminder of upcoming Great Streets Downtown Hyannis meeting, number 3, continued efforts regarding prohibiting discharge of radioactive wastewater from the Plymouth Nuclear Power Plant, number 4, notice for action by town and public hearing regarding lands at the Cape Cod Community College. Number 5, continued town discussions with Mass DEP regarding proposed changes to Title V regulations. And number 6, update on local comprehensive plan from Director of Planning and Development, Elizabeth Jenkins. So at this point in time, I would entertain any comments or questions from the council directed towards the town manager as far as his communications go. Anybody to my left? Anybody to my right? Councilor Starr, please.
Thank you, President Levesque. So, Mr. Ells, I have one quick question. Could you just give a quick overview of what's happening with the green burial regulations?
Took my thunder.
Oh, I took it.
Good evening, Mark Ellis, Town Manager. We're going to hearing on, these are town manager regulations, and basically it will be a modification to our current cemetery regulations that will allow for green burial. Actually, the Assistant Town Manager will be conducting the hearing on my behalf. I believe they're scheduled for next week. Wednesday, thank you. Wednesday at 11. Okay?
Thank you.
And as typical, the Assistant Town Manager will take them under advisement for 30 days. We'll review the comments. If there isn't significant change, we'll look to adopt. If there is significant change after consultation with legal, we may come back to hearing again, depending on the comments we receive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for asking the question.
Thank you, Councilor Starr.
Stay up.
Town Manager Elves, please don't leave. Councilor Schnapp has a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an item that I brought up a couple meetings ago about the opioid settlement and what the plan for the town of Barnstable for those monies that we've already received and will be receiving over the next 10 years. And just wanted to kind of get a sense of, what direction we're going. I know that a number of other towns on the Cape are initiating a public process where they're doing some outreach, and I would highly encourage that would be a component, and it might even be a requirement of the settlement terms. So I think it's very appropriate that our DA is here tonight, and I'm sure he's seen many cases that involve this, and I know that it can be seen from perspective from law enforcement, but I think there's a huge human services component to it, and I want to make sure we're reaching out to all that might have an interest and in this in the process in which we determine how these funds are used.
I'll ask Director Milne to come up because he is coordinating this for us. And certainly anything in addition to what you hear him share, we'll take into consideration, and we'll come back to you and let you know how we're proceeding. But thank you, Director Milne.
Good evening. Director of Finance, Mark Milne, Town of Barnstable. So we have trying to schedule a meeting for May 11th, next week. Internal staff, public safety officials, health officials, procurement officials, finance officials, our town attorney, to discuss exactly what process we're going to use, organizing of a committee, the process we're going to use, which I anticipate will be an RFP process, soliciting input from the community for ideas as to the best use of these funds. So we'll have our initial meeting next week to discuss that process and develop it.
I would encourage you to reach out to our Human Services Committee, because I know that they've been doing a lot of work in a lot of different areas, and I'd really like to be able to use our volunteer resources in that advisory component. And so please reach out. I think they might be a good addition to your conversation.
Thank you for that suggestion.
Thank you, Director Milne. Thank you, Councilor Schnapp. Any other input? Anybody else? Okay. I would close that part of our agenda then. Thank you very much, Town Manager Ells and staff. And Madam Vice President Cullum, if you could please help me act on the minutes.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes of April 27th, 2023 as written.
Second.
First and a second, do we have any discussion in regards to the minutes? Okay, not seeing any, then if you could raise your hand and signify your approval by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Abstentions? One abstention. Okay, now it's time for communications from elected officials, boards, committees, staff, commission reports, correspondence, and announcements from the council. Looking to my right, any announcements? Looking to my left, Councilor Clark, please.
Thank you very much, President Levesque. And I have a message from the Land Acquisition and Preservation Committee that this weekend is the spring walking weekend. The committee spearheads a outreach to the community to introduce them to our open spaces. both in the spring and in the fall. So this Saturday, May 6th, and Sunday, there are walks, and they can be found on the town's website.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And thanks, staff, for their support for this.
Any other announcements?
You gonna do that?
I will, unless you'd like to, Councilor Schnapp.
That's right. I did it last
You
week.
did it
It's
last week,
your
so it's,
turn.
we're handing it off. Thank you. We are announcing here the Millbilly Breakfast at Liberty Hall in Marston's Mills this Sunday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And I believe it is, it's the deal of the century, really. It's $10 for adults, $8 for children, and includes pancakes, scrambled eggs, sausage or bacon, home fries, and coffee, tea, and juice. And it's a great event. We did one in September, and we hopefully do again in this coming September. And all the monies raised goes to our scholarship fund. And I say ours, I should say Marston's Mills Village Association Scholarship Fund. So if you can come help support that, and there's a little caveat in there they put at the end that you do not have to be a Millbilly to attend. All are welcome. So no one's checking IDs. So any other comment before I move on?
Mr. President,
Yes.
there are pickup options available.
Yes, takeout is an option. Yes, it is. Actually, we do a lot of takeout. Anytime they have a meal, the ham and bean supper is always a big one as well. So, yes, takeout is available. So, no call-ahead seating, though. So with that, we're going to close the communications part. And I just wanted to make time at a request from District Attorney Robert Galabois, the Cape and Islands District Attorney, to come and speak and share with us and introduce himself. I don't think you're a stranger to these here parts, but at the same time, I do want to give you an opportunity and welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really appreciate it. And it's a tough act to follow the Millbilly breakfast menu, so I maybe next time I can go before that. But thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, Mr. President, and all the council members. I won't be long. I know you have quite the agenda tonight. For the record, my name is Rob Galabois. I am the District Attorney for the Cape and the Islands, and I'm also a resident of Barnstable, living over in West Barnstable. Today marks my 4th month in office, 4 months exactly. On January 4th, I took the oath. And right after I took the oath, I appointed a woman, Jessica Alumba, to be my first assistant. Jessica arrived in our office with about a quarter century of experience, having worked in Bristol County Attorney General's office and Plymouth County as a prosecutor, handling the most serious cases that come before our courts. And when I did so, Jess became the first woman ever in the history of the Cape and Islands District Attorney's Office to hold that top post of First Assistant District Attorney. It's something I'm quite proud of, honestly. Under her leadership, she implemented what's known as vertical prosecution in the Barnstable District Court. Barnstable District Court is the busiest of our 5 district courts. We handle several thousands of cases every year out of the Barnstable District Court. And under vertical prosecution, when a case begins at arraignment in the main session, if you will, the prosecutor that handles that arraignment is going to stay with that case throughout the entirety of the pretrial stage, the motion stage, all the way through the trial stage or the disposition stage. And as you might imagine, that makes it a lot easier for our victims in cases to work with the district attorney's office because they know from the very beginning who they're going to be working with throughout the entirety of the particular case. And it also makes it easier for our law enforcement partners because they know who is going to be handling the particular cases. And this was something that was born under Jess Alumba's leadership. Also under her leadership, she created for the first time an unsolved homicide unit within our DA's office. When I took office, we have 9 unsolved homicides across the Cape and the Islands. Within the first week, we had officers come in and meet with her. She formed a couple of teams in this unit, and we announced about 6 or 7 weeks into my term the arrests, or 2 arrests, of 2 individuals charged with first-degree murder on a matter right here in Hyannis that dates back to 2011, or some 12 years ago. So now we're down to 8. And if I'm allowed to come back in a few more months with another update, I'm hopeful to announce something else when we come back again. So Jess has been an incredible leader in the first assistant's role. We've also began a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee in our office. This is a first, is my understanding. We are forming that committee now. A woman, Angela Scott Price, who sits on the select board, and the town of Falmouth has agreed to be the chair of that committee. And a local woman right here in Barnstable, I'm pretty confident everyone here knows, Tara Vargas Wallace, who is the president and CEO of Amplify POC, has also agreed to serve on this particular committee. We are building it. If anyone has an interest in serving on it, I'd ask that you contact my office. A couple more things, I'll let you get on to your business. Over the course of the time that I was running for this particular position, probably the singular biggest issue that we talked about was a mental health court. That's a specialty court session in our district court. That was, I would suggest, by far the #1 platform issue. And what we talked about how is this is a specialty court where professionals in the field come right into the courtroom and they work with the struggling defendant to try to identify what it is that they're struggling with. When you identify it, of course, you can then try to treat it. And when you treat it, you therefore reduce the possibility of recidivism and, of course, making us all safer. When I was running, I spoke about how there was not a mental health court session for the Cape or the islands. It was all across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but not here. I cannot stand here right now and formally announce it, but I can tell you what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing around the courthouse. We are getting one here in Barnstable. And we're going to be getting one here, I'm quite confident, within my first year of my first term. So I'm quite excited to be able to share that news with you. I see what's going on. I'm hearing that a particular judge is going to be assigned to the session. I'm hearing probation officers are going out and being trained. So that's very exciting news that I wanted to share with all of you. And I'll leave you with this. My office has started the process this past Monday of collecting data. We had our staff members, our admin and victim witness assistant go through training last week, and we've started collecting data to ensure that we are treating every single case equally and fairly. The data is going to include, of course, such things as gender, race, ethnicity, charges that you're facing, the bail that was set, whether you're being held, whether you're out on conditions. So we want to be able to produce a report at the end of this year so we can scrutinize our own actions, but of course make that annual report public so you can all take a look and let us know how we're all doing. So those are the updates that I have to share with you tonight. Again, I appreciate the time. I also want to say this. My wife and I bought a house here at the end of last year, and this is now on a personal note. We're feeling quite welcomed in this town, and we deeply appreciate it. I've been invited in to speak to the police academy. That was a couple months ago. Just the other day, I was invited in by the Barnstable Public Schools, the principal for the high school, to speak to the inductees to the National Honor Society. I see many town officials, many of you, Mr. President, you probably think I'm stalking you at this point because we bump into each other all the time.
Always nice to see you.
And you're all so welcoming, if I'm just out running errands or at another event. So I just wanted to offer that. This is the last stop for my wife and I. Somewhat ironically, our marriage license was pulled here in this very building back in 1996. And we moved back into the town at the end of last year. So we feel incredibly welcomed, and I just wanted to offer that. I'm deeply appreciative. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to coming back if you will have me back in a few more months.
Absolutely. We talked about on a quarterly basis. If you'd like to pop in, we'd love to hear the updates
Appreciate
and
that.
see what's happening.
Thank you
Very
so much.
exciting stuff.
Thank you very
so
much.
much.
It's
Appreciate
just
it.
there's a small concern about the Millbilly breakfast. If the timing is wrong, he might be behind that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll work that out. We'll try to get you
thank
before that. Yeah.
One thing,
Yeah.
September is tough, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate you having my back.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Have a good
Thank you
night.
very much. You too. Thank you. Okay, normally I would take a break at this time, but we're moving right along, so I think I'm going to continue in that direction, unless I hear otherwise, or a raised hand. We will take a break. What I'm going to do here, just to make a quick announcement, because we have people in the room that I know are waiting for certain items, I am going to take certain items out of order. So just to make a quick announcement, I'm going to do 126 and 180 from old business, the last two items of old business first. And then I'm going to shoot right down through our new business, and then I'm going to come back to our budget items, starting with item 111, and run through 125. So I do believe that we'll be able to get everything in tonight, but I just wanted to make that quick announcement. So with that, if I could please, Councilor Schnepp, item number 2023-126.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an item of old business that may be acted upon by a majority vote. Item number 2023-126, appointments to a board committee commission. The Mid-Cape Cultural Council, Barbara Hersey as a regular member to a term expiring 6/2025. Shellfish Committee, Paul Hendricks Jr. as a professional fisheries trained member to a term expiring 6/2024. Youth Commission, Sophia Machnik as a student member to a term expiring 6/2024. And Daniel Gomes as a student member to a term expiring 6/2024.
Second.
We have first and second. Is there any discussion in regards to this item? Okay, not seeing any. If you could raise your hand and signify your approval by saying aye. I believe that is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Schnapp. Next item of old business, Councilor Rapcorsetti, please, if you could, item number 2023-180.
Yes, this is old business, may be acted upon by roll call, two-thirds full council. Item 2023-180, authorization to convey 8.1 plus or minus acres of the property located at 140 Old Oyster Road in the village of Cotuit, Mass. to the Cotuit Fire District for nominal consideration of $1 and no cents, and approval and authorization of a conservation restriction on the remaining 5.4 plus or minus acres of said property to be held by the Cotuit Fire District for conservation, recreation, aquifer recharge area, and water protection purposes as written.
Second.
We have first and a second, and we have Director of Asset Management, David Anthony, here for our rationale. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Good evening. As you mentioned, David Anthony, Director of Asset Management. Very pleased to be here and the opportunity to present this. This has been a project that has been ongoing for a couple of years, but it really kind of dates back to the closure of the school and the mission of managing our town assets and making sure that underused assets are disposed of appropriately. Up on the screen, we see the order that is before you. Just a reminder of what was just read. Thank you, Councilor Rapcorsetti. So, love technology. Okay, here we go. The former Cotuit Elementary School, located in Cotuit. These are some pictures for those of you who might not be as familiar with it as some. It's located on Old Oyster Road. It is a piece of property that was acquired in the 1950s, and a school was built very much like a number of other schools that were built in the decade of the 50s. It is 17,000 square feet, and it sits on a 13.5-acre parcel. I do call your attention for future reference to the upper left-hand corner, because as you can see, the spaceship that is hovering over the school in the far corner is actually a water tower, which will come into play as much of what we are doing today is hopefully going to get approval to transfer the land for water protection. And the presence of that water tower is a stark reminder of how close this school is to a drinking well. So a bit of background for those who might not be familiar. The school actually closed in 2009 as part of a massive school reorganization. It was leased for 10 years to the Waldorf School, and the school department had them as a tenant. At the end of that particular time with the Waldorf School, it was declared surplus to school needs, and they voted, the school committee did, to turn it back to the town, so it became a town asset. At that point in time, the Asset Management Advisory Committee, which included a number of people who are sitting here on the dais today, we had held a number of meetings to talk about what to do with this asset, with the hope that, and specifically Councilor Jessica Rapcorsetti had said, I hope this is not going to sit vacant for long periods of time, and I apologize that it's taken this long, but sometimes things do seem to start and stop. So there were concerns during those public Zoom sessions, which were very well attended by the village. A number of people came forward with a lot of great ideas about what could be done. There was definite theme of water protection. There was definite theme of the need to preserve open space and recreation. There was also a desire to make sure that there was nothing done that was going to change the village and its nature and its culture. These were consistent themes by people who were abutters, people who had lived in town for long periods of time. And with the water quality issue and the potential of housing, and I think Jim Donheiser really did a nice job of kind of laying that out. Water concern is not just important to Cotuit, it's town-wide, and this was an opportunity for us to really pay attention to that and move on that. So one of the first things that we did was through our DPW department, we looked at the school building because one of the questions was, can we renovate it for short money and use it for something else? And one of the challenges of a school that has been closed for a period of time, in one that was built in the 50s, is that it was built to a standard back then. And in order to bring it back up to a public building standard now, we would have to invest a considerable amount of money. And these are 2020 numbers, so these numbers are actually low compared to what it would be if we were to move forward. But I think we needed that as a placeholder to understand what it was going to cost to renovate this building. We also needed at the same time to understand what it was going to cost to make the building go away. This particular building, built in the 1950s, at that time, building materials, some of them are now considered not appropriate to put in buildings like churches and hospitals and schools, namely asbestos. But that school had, over the years, the school department had made sure that asbestos in the classrooms was either encapsulated or removed, but there are a lot of things in the eaves, in the basement, in the crawl spaces around the furnace that where kids never got a chance to go to, but it's still there and it would need to be cleaned up. So the Cotuit Fire District approached the town to acquire land, trying to see what they could do to establish a buffer zone. As has already been mentioned, there was a meeting in 2021 where the annual meeting district voted to move ahead with that idea. And then it was a matter of how exactly are we going to do that? How much land, how much do we retain? All of it, some of it, none of it? Do we lease some of it back? We looked at a lot of different solutions, but all the time always being aware of the land that was upgraded from the drinking well. And this exhibit really does try to provide, there are several colors that are on this map. The orange circle that is in the lower right-hand corner, that is the area around the well. That is the 400-foot buffer zone around the well. The open space just to the kind of north and west is the Cotuit School. And you will see that that shaded yellow area is a wellhead protection zone and a gradient where water comes down to that well, which is why they located it there. So you can see that 90% of this school property is inside that wellhead protection zone. Very important for the water district to, at the very least, have some say as to what was going to happen on that land to not have any impact on the well. So again, you'll see the yellow zone, and then you would also see the orange. This is a little bit different picture that maybe shows the proximity to that school. It is 800 feet from the actual edge of the school. It is quite close, and the opportunity to understand and monitor and manage what happens on this property was very important. These notes were given to me by the committee. It is apparently Cotuit's oldest active well, and it does pump a lot of water, and the ability to make sure that this well stays pure is important for the village because there is capacity, but you can see that they are up against what their daily minimums would be. So in 2020, a subcommittee of the Cotuit Fire District was set up. The actual name is the Cotuit Fire District School Committee Subcommittee, and the three individuals who are behind me, Jackie Barton, former town councilor, Jim Donheiser, who's an executive board member of the Cotuit-Santuit Civic Association, and Mark Lynch, who's a member of the current Prudential Committee, worked with the town to try to come up with some creative solutions that would allow us to check as many of the boxes moving forward. And the plan that we bring for you today for your vote really will allow us to achieve almost all of those goals. In 2022, we finalized those terms and we began to move through the process of trying to make sure that the conservation restriction that is going to sit on the town's property was to the satisfaction of all and would meet the state regulations. We went to the planning board and took the 13.5-acre parcel to divide it with an approval not required into two parcels, one parcel and a lot. So this allowed us to kind of create the 8.1 and the 5.5. We do have an underground storage tank that is normal for schools of that age. It is a 10,000-gallon double-hulled fiberglass tank that is underneath, and we are in the process of having that removed. The other tanks of its generation have come out clean, and by May 30th, we should be done. We had 7 bids, and we are moving forward with that. We are in the contracting stage to make sure that the vendor is going to go out there. They believe it's going to be a 3-day window in order to get things done. We have a licensed service provider, which is a particular type of scientist who is there and, for lack of a better word, looks in the hole to make sure that it's clean and tests the soil and then gives us a certification at the end so that we can make sure that we provide them with a property that does not have that tank in the ground. We also had to go and per disposal rules, we had to get a full market appraisal on the property, which has been received. And it does carry a number for the demolition of the school as part of its value. Final step is we're here tonight to try to bring this home, to get our final steps in to be able to make this transfer. So at the end of all of this, we would end up with something that looks like this. The district area would be green. The town would retain the red area, which is where you have the tennis courts and the ball field. We were very fortunate to be able to negotiate a conservation restriction that allows the town the freedom to be able to maintain the tennis courts. We can upgrade the baseball field by including some of the things that go along with baseball fields, as this one is in part of that field study plan and at some point will be addressed. It does allow for some expanded non-pervious parking so that we can control how the site gets used. We were able to negotiate a pass-through agreement so that as long as there is connection between Main Street and Old Oyster, both parties can pass through, which was a very important part of being able to manage the property. So we have a number of other provisions in that conservation restriction. And then again, in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see that the blue area is the land that the water district would retain. So the benefits of this action moving forward is that this is a major step towards water preservation, which is a key element and a key strategic goal of the town these days. It provides the district with pumping options to include relief for their other wells. By keeping this well intact and clean and pristine, it gives them options to be able to deal with their other wells and manage that. We can preserve recreation and open space in the village, which was very important to have. As was mentioned, this is one of the few places where there is any kind of organized space to be able to do that. We were also able to achieve the goal of taking an unused asset or an underused asset and come up with a plan that was going to work to the benefit of all. And finally, it helps to preserve village character. This is the traditional step-off point for parades, for gatherings, for a lot of different things that happen in the Cotuit Village. And it was very important to be able to make sure that the recreation land, at the very least, was available for that to continue. So in looking at this, this request tonight, we're able to achieve all of these goals after two years' worth of good work with partners in the village and in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Anthony. Appreciate all your hard work on this as well. And as was mentioned, Town Manager Ells and Assistant Town Manager Andy Clyburn and Mark Mill and everybody involved. It's a big, arduous task. So, but at the same time, building saved in a lot of ways. So if this passes, so any questions? Looking to my left. Also, too, actually, I want to ask if anybody. This is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong page. I'm sorry. I was looking at the next item. I apologize. So, so with that, go back to council discussion. Councilor Clark, please.
Thank you very much, President Levesque. And I just would like to congratulate the town and the Cotuit Fire District for this comprehensive work done with the collaboration to benefit the town and the village. Nicely done.
Thank you, Councilor Clark. Councilor Lucky, please.
Yeah, just a couple questions. Thank you for the presentation. Again, I'm so impressed with how this came together. You mentioned in your comment, particularly non-pervious parking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, why would you, wouldn't you want this in the water area to be pervious so you'd get more flow and you wouldn't have to deal with stormwater and things? I just wondered, because you made a point of saying non-pervious. Is there a rationale for that?
I believe that this is the way to bring more parking onto the site without increasing the level of asphalt coverage, which this has been the way to move forward if you're going to do some of the parking. It's essentially gravel parking.
Gravel, okay.
So it's a little bit easier to maintain. You don't have to worry about putting petroleum and oil, which is a heavy-duty component of asphalt, onto the ground.
Right. No, I thought you said non-pervious.
Well,
Doesn't that mean?
Did I say non-pervious or impervious? If I said non-pervious, I apologize. It's a gravel parking.
Okay, then I'm with you. That was my thought, that might be a better solution. And the other question, I'm just curious, you mentioned the fuel oil tank. Was the septic system from the 1950s? What kind of septic is over there? Is it like we had at the United Elementary School, kind of a separate system? Or I'm just curious what the septic was, being so close to the wellhead.
So it is a typical septic system that was designed for the amount of groundwater flow that was coming out of a school. You certainly don't have washing machines and things like that. There's a large containment tank that is on the north side of the school, the east side of the school, similar to you would have at home. And then there are a series of pipes that go out to a leach field. The leach field is actually just on the town side of the split of the property. And one of the provisions in the conservation restriction allows the Cotuit Fire District to maintain or remove that leach field down the road. So we built in an allowance into the conservation restriction to have that removed if they were to tear down the building and relocate the building on site, and they needed to abandon the septic system, it could be removed at that time. But at this point in time, it is innocuous. It can stay right where it is. It's simply structures underneath the ground.
Great, that sounds perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lucky. Madam Vice President, please.
Yes, thank you for the report. I think it's a worthwhile project. I like the collaboration aspect of it as well. Just wondering about the appraised value. You mentioned there was an appraised value, but you didn't say the number.
So the commercial appraised value came back at $1,095,000. It carries with it a $950,000 liability on it. And that number is based on actual bids from the demolition bids done for the Marston's Mills School. So we know that because those schools were built at about the same time, that we're going to be dealing with similar types of construction materials and disposal costs and hazardous material abatement. So because we were able to carry that number, essentially it's worth $1.1 million, but somebody's got to take down the building. So that's carried in there as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Councilor Schnapp, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, David, for the presentation. This is a huge commitment on the part of the Cotuit Fire District, and I commend them for stepping forward. Do they currently have plans for the use of the building, or is that still under discussion?
I would not want to promote any kind of a plan on their behalf. It is my understanding, however, that they don't quite know what the firm plans will be. So this gives them options down the road as well, and I think that was one of the benefits of the collaborative effort.
And I know this is sort of fire district annual meeting season. Has this been fully approved by the fire district to take on this responsibility?
I would not want to answer that when there are people who could probably do a much better job in the room. Thank you.
And with that, thank you, Councilor Schnapp. Councilor Rapcasetti, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just to Councilor Schnapp's question, at the annual meeting at the end of May, the last day of May, there'll be a warrant article to ratify this transfer by the district. Then the fun begins. But again, thank you, David. I want to go all the way back to the Asset Management Advisory Committee. I think Councilor Steinhilber was chair of that committee. And a lot of the Cotuit residents Zoomed in. This was during Zoom. They Zoomed into those meetings. Everybody offered suggestions. Everybody was very, as Cotuitians can be very passionate about this property. I'm passionate with regard to seeing it no longer be a school ever since the school children left, as I went through K through 6 at that school. But I think this is the right thing to do. I'm bothered every time I drive by the Marston's Mill School, and I know there's plans to have it demolished soon, and I think I was hopeful to see the numbers come in on that recently, and not off the charts. So, and I hope Marston's Mills can be a part of that discussion. But bringing it back to Cotuit, I think this is important for the village, and this is just the beginning of what will happen to that school, whether it'll be demolished or whether it'll be reused somehow by the district. There are limiting factors with regard to that as well. My only request going forward, and you mentioned about the lands and the recreation lands, is that the attention be brought back to those lands for rehabilitation. The fields are in very poor condition. The playground that used to be there affiliated with the school was noted in a map as still being there. It's no longer there because it was very unsafe. I'd like to see a playground be brought back there because there are a lot of families in the village that would utilize it. The tennis courts are so well used. A lot of people use that space. So stay tuned because we'll see what happens by the Cotuit Fire District voters. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor City. Any other comment on this side? Any comment on this side? Okay. Okay, moving forward to a vote, and it is a roll call. So Town Clerk and Quirk for the vote, please.
Councilors Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapcrossetti,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnepp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
That's unanimous, 13 yes.
Thank you. Congratulations. And again, thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I look forward to the first block party at the, I'm just kidding.
You'll have to provide the menu.
Okay. Oh, I might be able to, do you know me? Anyway. So that being said, again, congratulations. Moving on to our first item of new business. If we could, Councilor Schnepp, please, item number 2023-127.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an item of new business referring to a public hearing on May 18th, 2023. Item number 2023-127, appropriation order in the amount of $90,000 for the purpose of funding a floating treatment wetland pilot study for Long Pond, Marston's Mills, as written.
Second.
First and a second, again referring to a public hearing. If you could, Council, raise your hand and signify approval by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? I believe it's unanimous. Thank you, Councilor Schnepp. Moving on to our next item of new business. Councilor Clark, please, if you could, item number 2023-181.
Thank you, President Levesque. This is agenda item 2023-181. It's new business may be acted upon with a roll call majority vote. Transfer order in the amount of $59,320 from the Marine and Environmental Affairs and Administrative Service Department fiscal year 2023 personnel budgets to the fiscal year 2023 Marine and Environmental Affairs fiscal year 2023 operating capital budget for the purpose of funding the acquisition of a harbor master vehicle.
Second.
We have a first and a second, and Director Lawson for the rationale, please. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, councilors. Derek Lawson, Director of Marine and Environmental Affairs. Quite often, harbor master staff have to respond to calls for service via land, not always by boat. And so this truck is very important for our staff. We also have many vessels that we have to tow from boat yards to boat ramps to get the vessels in the water. One being 27 feet and over 10,000 pounds. So that's the reason for the 2,500 for the Silverado HD. And also we maintain over 200 aids to navigation for the town of Barnstable, in which we need the bed for the truck to move the equipment. So that's the rationale behind the request.
Okay, thank you very much. And moving over now to council discussion. Anybody have any questions about said vehicle? Oh, yes, Councilor Cusack, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know much, Derek, about when we make fleet decisions, if electric vehicles are part of our approach to looking at different options.
I believe electric vehicles right now for the truck that we need is probably quite expensive. What we usually do is go through John Tazanari through DPW, and he usually sets up the trucks that we need. So I can make that request and let you know.
Thanks, I appreciate that update. I raised a similar question last Thursday in regards to the roof for the golf. I probably a question for me to follow up with other leadership elements about whether or not that's part of our process when we're looking at doing new roofs, buying new vehicles. And so it's just more for me learning-wise, I think. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Cusack. And there just appeared our town manager, Mark Ells.
Good evening, Mark Ells, Town Manager. Yes, we do look at the vehicle fleet that we have. We evaluate the types of uses, the types of vehicles available, and where the use of hybrid, electric is still more, fully electric is still more on the piloting side for us, and then whether we use gas or diesel. So yes, it goes through an evaluation process. Dave Anthony gets involved as well to assist us. Many times they are more costly, but in some cases there's an offset of funding opportunities. So we try to look at it all, and we try to keep a fleet that's safe, functional, and fuel efficient. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Great question. Thank you. Thank you, Town Manager Hills. Thank you, Director Lawson. And any other council discussion? Okay, not seeing any. If you could raise your hand and I'm sorry. It's just roll call majority vote. So Town Clerk and Quirk for the roll call.
Councilors Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapresetti,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis.
Yes.
Passes 13 yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Director Lawson. Appreciate you being with us. Next item of new business, Council Steinhilber, please. Item number 2023-182.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under new business, item 2023-182, transfer order in the amount of $428,700 from the fiscal year 2023 Department of Public Works General Fund personnel budgets to the fiscal year 2023 Department of Public Works General Fund operating expenditure and operating capital budgets for the purpose of funding outside professional services, equipment, supplies, and materials as written.
First and a second, and we have Director of our DPW, Daniel Santos, here for the rationale.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. The Department of Public Works General Fund operations are projected to produce over $800,000 in salary budget savings due to numerous vacancies throughout the fiscal year 2023. As a result, this presents an opportunity to utilize some of these funds to procure outside professional assistance, equipment, supplies, and materials that were not included in the original fiscal year 2023 budget. The transfer request will provide funding for the following initiatives and items: hydrologic evaluation of Snows Creek culvert design, $25,000; Maraspin Creek culvert assessment, $35,000; forensic evaluation of the Mar well field contamination, $13,200; flashing stop signs on Pine Street at Strawberry Hill, $4,000; contract painting of stop bars and crosswalks, $35,000; contract thermoplastic of arrows and school road markings, $35,000; Contract long line painting of yellow and white lines, $100,000. Walk behind flail brush mower, $7,000. Hardwood floor refinishing for the West Barnstable Community Building, $9,000. New boiler, fan coils, and condensers for Old Selectmen's Building, $5,500. Overlay panel and software upgrade for elevator at Barnstable Adult Community Center, $6,000. Flashing beacon on South Street at Town Hall and Armory Crossing, $20,000. Opticom replacement, $24,000. Flail mower for Kubota tractor, $20,000. New boiler, fan coils, and condensers for the West Barnstable Community Building, $19,000. Upgrades to fire alarm system at Barnstable Police Department, $10,000. Old Colony Road and South Street, Barnstable Road and Winter Street, Opticom replacement, $16,000. And articulating boom lift purchase, a used model for $45,000. Individual items that cost $10,000 or more that result in the purchase of a depreciable asset are part of operating capital. Typically, any unspent salary funds at the end of the fiscal year will become part of the general fund reserve. These funds have already been appropriated as part of the fiscal year 2023 operating budget, and the vacancy savings present an opportunity to address several opportunities that would otherwise have to be addressed in future budget requests. That concludes my rationale. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Santos. Now time for council discussion. Any questions in regards to this? Councilor Luckey, please.
Thank you, Dan. A couple of questions. You mentioned you had vacancies. How many vacancies do you have?
I don't have the exact number, and it varies throughout the year, but every time we have a vacancy, even for any amount of time, we're not spending money. We've had up to 30 vacancies in the highway and structures and grounds in the past year at a single time. Many of the vacancies are in the seasonal category of employee. It's very difficult to hire seasonal employees recently. And it's just been hard for us to hire a number of our positions, so we've had to do without, and that's resulted in this accumulated savings.
Right. So then you're going to wipe out that, so you can't hire until the next fiscal year? Is that correct? I know we're probably right up against that, right? Is that so?
No, this is just the amount we haven't spent, so it doesn't bite into if I did hire someone next week.
Okay, so you
there's still
could
money
hire
for
someone
that.
if you could.
Yeah, these positions that are open are all advertised and available to interview and to hire.
Okay, so you still have funds available.
Yes.
That was my concern. And then could you give a little more detail on the forensic evaluation of the Maher well field contamination? Because I thought all of that, we were all filtered and everything there. I'm just curious what that is.
We are, and what we are trying to do is figure out who's responsible, what entity is responsible for the contamination being there.
Oh.
And so that's why it's a forensic analysis of the contaminants that are in the well, and there's a way to fingerprint the contaminants and relate them to particular sources. And so that's what this work is.
I know I've heard that term fingerprint. I know Katie has mentioned fingerprinting, so, okay. So
Every
that's what
chemical
you're gonna,
has you can break down a chemical into its component parts with mass spectrometer analysis.
the suspects, if you will, have fingerprints that you then trace back once you do these forensics? I'm just curious, what will this entail? You'll do the forensics, you'll come up with the fingerprints, and then is there like the police, you have a database of fingerprints to choose from?
Basically,
Really?
for existing studies that have been underway at the airport, at the Fire Training Academy,
Okay.
these are known sources of contaminants, so we know what their fingerprints look like. And a lot of this work was done at the airport, and I thank the airport
Yeah.
for a lot of this work. So that's why this is actually a very small amount of money for this work. We're benefiting from the work the airport did. And much of the contamination
It may be a
is
new
known.
fingerprint then. It could be a,
Much of the work that we've done over the past few years has been with the County Fire Training Academy.
Okay.
And we have done other work. For example, we do particle tracking. And so we know that the water that starts in the vicinity of the Fire Training Academy, groundwater, flows in the direction of our Mar well field. So we have that information. Now when we put that together with fingerprint information that says this chemical only exists at this location, say the Fire Training Academy,
Right.
and here it exists in our well, so we make that connection.
Okay.
And this is as part of our conversation with the county about responsibility and ultimately to get reimbursement for our capital expenditures and our operating costs.
Wow. Thank you. That's fantastic. It sounds like a very critical thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lucky. Thank you, Director Santos, and thank you for your efforts in regards to that and working with the county. Councilor Schnapp, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a follow-up from Councilor Lutke. The total amount of unspent personnel money is about $800,000. How does that compare to last year or previous years? Is that quite a significant increase, or is it?
It's more this year. I don't have exact numbers, but certainly in past years we've had $300,000 or $400,000, maybe $500,000.
Okay.
It really depends on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Schnapp. Councilor Starr, please.
Thank you, President Levesque. So, Mr. Santos, so I know you've been trying to hire like engineers for the CWMP. Do you feel that we're competitive with other towns? Is that a problem?
We're competitive with other towns, but that's not our competition. Our competition is in the market. So when the economy is good,
yeah,
private entities are, they are paying better and better benefits, and that's where employees will go. I mean, it's not the only reason that people choose one job over another, but we've seen a lot of potential employees turn down positions or leave over pay, and I know the manager is working very hard with Bill Cole and Human Resources to try to address this issue. It's difficult in a union environment because it's
okay. So my next question was, how can we help? Can the town council help at any level? I'll throw that out there.
That's not for me to answer. I'll leave the manager to address that with you.
Okay. So my other question was sort of, last week we talked with the town architect, Mark Marinacci, and we were talking about, it's sort of a parallel to what Mr. Cusack brought out about electric vehicles, and we're putting a new boiler in the West Barnstable Community Building. I know there are a lot of incentives for heat pumps. Was that considered, or do you need more of a directive from us to do that?
No, and I know we look at a variety of opportunities and things when we replace, and I presume that has been the case here, but I will double check. And we want to put in the most efficient and effective system, yes. And if there's a different opportunity there for a similar amount of money, then we'll pursue that.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure. You mentioned electric vehicles. Just one of the things that we want to put a plow on every vehicle we buy. Yeah. And right now, electric vehicles cannot plow 24/7, which is what we have to do with our public works trucks. So from Public Works, that's why electric vehicles really don't work now. We'd love them to. I love the idea of electric vehicles. We were looking and actually got a grant from the state for an electric trash truck. But they're just not perfected yet, and I think that might be a lot of headaches, and we might need to wait until private industry perfects those a little more than they are right now. Again, that's something that runs all day long, and so they use up battery quite a bit.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor Starr. Thank you, Director Santos. And just a question came up in regards to retaining employees and what we're doing in regards to reviewing that and what would ultimately become to the council to be able to help with something to address that. It has been a conversation at the leadership level that I've had with Madam Vice President with actually we were talking about this past Monday. And so if you could, Town Manager Ells, further discuss that and explain what we've been speaking of.
Sure. Mark Ells, Town Manager. So all of these requests for transfer, as explained earlier, don't impede us from filling positions. These are savings that are a result of having a position vacated. And typically this time of year, we come into you all and we look to get more done, sometimes because we haven't had the staff and we have to contract it out, and sometimes because that money's there and money is limited as we move through any given budgetary year. So it provides us an opportunity to get additional work done. relative to staff, we're running organization-wide at about a 10% vacancy. That's higher than normal. In some departments, police, public works, some of our other trade-related type positions, even building department, we're looking at the additional demand there and therefore future years, additional staff. We're running at even greater percentages. When we begin to look at our seasonal temporary employees, it is extremely difficult to fill those positions. We're more in the 25 to 30% vacancy range. This is a challenge for us. Barnstable is a complex community, and we have the challenges of housing availability. We have the challenges of the cost of living. We have the challenges of a complex environment. It isn't like doing business in other places in the Commonwealth. Our staff, you know our directors, but right down to boots on the ground, are the best in the business. To get that during a time like this, we need to be competitive. So what are we doing about it? We've discussed it with leadership, certainly. Myself, Mark Milne, Andy Clyburn, Bill Cole are internally discussing and assessing the marketplace for the types of employees that we need, both to fill the vacant positions we have, but more importantly, to look to the future as to how we're going to meet the needs of our organization and our community. We're going to be looking at issues relative to competitive salary. We're going to be looking at issues relevant to benefits and compensation or rather, the percentage-wise that we're looking in benefits. How can town council help us on this? As well as many other things, but we need to get into the details of every department and the different needs that each department has relative to competitiveness in the marketplace for retaining employees and recruiting and obtaining those employees to work for us. So how can you help? You already are. You recognize this challenge. You're familiar with our benefits and our salaries, I believe. When we get to issues such as percentage benefits, you know that Barnstable is at 50-50. That is the lowest allowed by law and in the Commonwealth. We need to look at that issue. We need to understand it financially. We need to understand it relevant to our employees in the marketplace. And it comes up with every hire, and it comes up with most departures that aren't retirements. That will require a town council supportive vote if that is modified. So what I've asked leadership to do is give myself and my staff time to organize this discussion and then to bring this discussion forward to you with facts about where we are in addressing this immediately and medium range, because the market can change, but we're not seeing that trend really. It's more difficult. We see it in almost every category, and I expect we'll be doing that no later than late summer, coming back into you with a presentation and then subsequent discussions. It has significant budget impacts. We'll also be talking with Superintendent Ahern because it isn't just municipal side, it's schools and municipal, and we're in this together. And so, expect that sort of discussion and presentation. Thank you.
Follow-up, Council Starr?
No, I just want to say that the 50-50 is, you're talking healthcare, basically.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I want to make that clear. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate
Yes.
it.
May I say something?
Yep, absolutely. Madam Vice Chair?
So when we have these discussions, we say things like we have the most professional staff in the state, and we need to make sure we're appreciating our professional staff. And it really concerns me when I hear 50-50, and I hope that we can all look at that as if we plan on keeping the professional people that we have. I hope that if that comes out forward as a recommendation, that we can seriously look at that and understand that we're asking people to perform at the top of their game sometimes 6 days a week, nights, away from their kids, away from their families, in all levels of our organization. And the way the marketplace is right now, you can go even to the county and get a third more. So we have to think about that if we plan on executing at the level we're asking these people to execute at. The other thing is just a question, and I don't know what the answer is, so I am honestly asking it. Do we give retention interviews in Barnstable? Because I think it's nice to have, leadership meet and discuss the problems of everyone down the line, but are we asking the people down the line what they need? I just think it's a different aspect and a good way of figuring out how we can come to some sort of an
Bill Cole does that. He also talks with employees, so do directors, as they exit, because we really do try to gather factual information and be able to utilize that in putting together a real plan to retain the best people. So we do, but I mean, if there's some specific area of interest you have, certainly share it. And if we're not collecting the data, we will.
Yeah, I just think it's an interesting aspect because, when people leave, the exit interview is it's obviously way too late to retain the good ones.
Right.
But if as you're going along, if you ask, 4 people from each area, 5 people from each area, some from, the fire departments, some from the police department, some from the school department, and just ask, get a litmus of a barometer of what expectations are. I'm sure 50-50 split will be right up there, but just to see, sometimes in organizations like this, when excellent people are at the top, there's people who are trying to get to the top feel stymied, that they can't get there. Is that a thing? There's a whole bunch of reasons why people might leave. It may not only be economic.
Well, we've spent a lot of time, and I'm departing, President Levesque. May I continue the discussion, or would you like me to bring this back in a workshop?
Let's bring it back. I'm sorry.
Well, we will definitely bring it back as far as a workshop when you're it continued. I would say, if you can put it in a few sentences, then yes. But at the same time, right, exactly.
I think that everything Councilor Cullum has said
Yes.
is certainly part of what we're going to prepare for.
Perfect.
And we will be ready to bring that to you when you allow us to do so.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's what we have discussed. That's next steps. So thank you for that. A good question and important, and I'm sorry to deviate in the middle of your item, Director Santos, but I think it is an important topic of discussion, and I thought it was very organic, part of the discussion, so that's why I allowed it. So I appreciate the councilors participating in that and bringing that out, because it is an issue, for sure. So with that, is there any other, in regards to this item, any other discussion? Okay, not seeing any. Move to a vote, please, Town Clerk and Quirk.
Counselors Cullum.
Yes.
Cusack.
Yes.
Rapcorsetti.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Ludke.
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Atzelis.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
That's 13 yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving down the line, Council Mendes, if you could, please, item number 2023-183.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is new business. This is item number 2023-183. Transfer order in the amount of $51,000 from the fiscal year 2023 Administrative Services Department personal budget to the fiscal year 2023 Administrative Services Department operating expense budget and operating capital budget for the purpose of funding diversity, equity, and inclusion training and diagnostic and purchasing furniture in the tax collections office. May be acted upon. Roll call majority vote.
Second.
We have first and a second, and we have Finance Director Mark Milne here for the rationale, please. Thank you.
Thank you, President Levesque. This transfer order request will allow us to take care of two initiatives here for the town of Barnstable that we would have been coming forward at a later date for an appropriation request. But some salary savings within the finance and human resource operations this year will allow us to bring these forward without prohibiting us from filling those vacancies for the remainder of this fiscal year. The first is some training, DEI training, that we would like to contract for by the end of this fiscal year, and it will be conducted throughout the next fiscal year. It will include in-person training as well as virtual training for department managers and other key officials within the entire town. including the school department. And the second initiative will be to outfit the tax collector's office with some new modern furniture that will fit in that space. We are consolidating the treasurer's office, which is currently in the school administration building, in this building with the tax collector's office. The equipment we have now won't fit in that space for the number of employees that we're locating there. So this will allow us to get some new modern furniture. It's a little smaller in scale. We'll have 11 total people in that area working, and we'd like to utilize some of our vacancy savings to outfit that office. It'll look very similar to the furniture that you see in the assessor's office. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Director Milne, for the rationale. Looking to my right, any comment, question? Looking to my left? No? Okay. Move to a vote, please. Town Clerk Gankwork. Thank you for that, Mark Milne.
Counselors. Cusack.
Yes.
Rapgrissetti.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Ludke.
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Atzelis.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Cullum.
Yes.
It's 13 yes, it passes.
Thank you very much. Councilor Atzelis, if you could, please, item number 2023-184.
This is a new business, item number 2023-184. Transfer order in the amount of $22,000 from the Planning and Development Department fiscal year 2023 personnel budget to the fiscal year 2023 Planning and Development operating expense budget for the purpose of funding the replacement of buoys in Aselton Park. This may be acted upon by roll call majority vote.
Second.
First and a second, we have Director of Planning and Development, Elizabeth Jenkins, here for the rationale. Welcome.
Thank you, President Levesque, Council, Elizabeth Jenkins, Director of Planning and Development. The Planning and Development Department has approximately $80,000 in salary savings this year from vacancies, and I'm here tonight to ask for the council support to use a portion of that to help refresh the iconic buoy installation that is installed at Aselton Park. This iconic installation went up in 2006, and if you have taken a walk at the harbor lately, you'll see that those buoys clearly show their wear. This replacement would be an opportunity to communicate changes in water quality status that was originally reflected in the design of those buoys. Our Arts and Culture Coordinator has already been in conversations with the Department of Public Works on how to best accomplish this. I'll also add that this has been a long-standing item on her list, and that we have spent quite a lot of time trying to find a grant opportunity to be able to accomplish this. Unfortunately, when you're refreshing and maintaining something instead of creating something new, those opportunities tend to be few and far between. So we thought this was a good opportunity to close that gap. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Jenkins. And any questions in regards to this? Look to my left. Not seeing any. To my right. Councilor Schnapp, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. This item just brought up something that we talked about several years ago when I think we had a presentation, maybe Wendy Northcross, on the blue economy, and there were supposed to be displays in the harbor. Did those ever go up?
They did, yeah.
Okay,
so that was a region-wide
better pay more
effort,
attention.
to promote the blue economy. There are, I believe, 3 that are down at Bismore at varying scales.
I've seen them. Councilor Starr.
Thank you. So, Ms. Jenkins, what does it mean to communicate changes in water quality status?
Yeah, so the buoys were originally designed, the colors were meant to correspond with water quality status in our various bays and estuaries. Sort of a little known fun fact about the installation. As part of this, actually, we would like to design and erect a sign that draws attention to the issues of water quality in our community and the town of Barnstable's water resource management efforts.
So they're going to be symbolically different colors, or
They'll be the same colors, but perhaps the proportion of the colors will change.
Okay. I just got a mooring at Scudder Lane, and I need a buoy. So let me know when you.
We'll see if we have.
When we retire the other ones. Is that permissible? Any other questions, comments in regards to the buoys in Aselton Park? The buoy item. Okay. Not seeing any. Move to a vote, please. Town Clerk and Clerk. Thank you, Director Jenkins.
Counselors, Rap Grissetti.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Ledke.
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Atzelis.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Cullum.
Yes.
Cusack.
Yes.
That is 13 yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous. And the next item of new business, Councilor Neary, if you could please, Councilor Neary, excuse me, could you please 2023-185?
My pleasure, Mr. President. This is new business, may be acted upon with a roll call majority vote. It's item number 2023-185. It's a transfer order in the amount of $76,607 from the Barnstable Police Department fiscal year 2023 personnel budget to the fiscal year 2023 Police Department operating expense budget. This is for the purpose of funding training expenses and expenses associated with officer wellness, as written.
First and a second, we have Chief Matthew Sonnabend here for the rationale. Welcome. Just pop the microphone on. Green light.
There we go.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
All right. Good evening. Chief Sonnabend here to speak to item number 2023-185, a transfer order in the amount of $76,607 from our FY23 personnel budget to our FY23 operating budget. The department has seen some unanticipated operating expenses, which has led us to need to a shortfall in the ability to pay for some planned fiscal expenses this year. One of those expenses is a one-on-one employee assistance program meetings for about $20,000. This request breaks down into three different areas. The first is $18,000 to fund ammunition needed to meet additional firearms qualifications that must be completed by June 30th, 2023. These are additional mandates that came down from the state during the operating year that we're not budgeted for, so we're required to complete them by the end of this fiscal year. Those were unanticipated. The second part of this request is due to a shortfall in the FY23 operating budget caused by some unanticipated expenses. We are still needing to fund the one-on-one employee assistance program meetings or the officer wellness visits in the amount of $20,000. And the third part of this request is for training supplies that will be funded in fiscal year 23 for the fiscal year 24 training requirements totaling $38,607, which breaks down to $9,400 for taser cartridges, $2,400 for ZX recertification, and $8,807 for LEFTA program maintenance, and ammunition for, once again, $18,000 for ammunition for the FY24 firearms training requirements totaling $38,607. The total amount of this request for the transfer from the personnel budget to the operating budget is $76,607. The unspent salary budgets at the end of the fiscal year close out to go to the general reserve funds, and using a portion of these savings will result in the police department being able to address important officer training and wellness programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And moving to council discussion. Anything to my left? Any questions? Anything to my right? Councilor Leckie, please.
Thank you, President Levesque. Chief, thank you. Just a question at what Mark had mentioned earlier, and I get especially concerned when you have personnel dollars left over, which means you're short on your personnel. And I know you mentioned about your civil service component. Will that make the evaluation by Mark, I assuming you're going to be in the evaluation that Mark's doing, will the civil service component impact how that's done? Will that make it a little bit different on how you can evaluate your options?
You talking about the opioid monies?
No, I'm talking about the effort that Mark was doing to...
correct. Recruitment and hiring?
Yeah, exactly.
Because of the civil service requirements, we just can't throw an ad in the paper and take whoever comes in and does applications. There are certain requirements and benchmarks that have to be met. They have to take the statewide exam. People then, after they take the statewide exam,
they actually have to come in and tell us they want to get hired. So we have to go through that whole process and background processes, the academies, the physical requirements, medical requirements,
Right.
psychological requirements. So even though somebody may take the test and be qualified to come in and put their name down saying they want a job, by the end of the day, once we get through all the other processes we need to, we may not end up with the numbers that we need. And right now, what we're seeing is, for instance, we're going through a hiring process right now. We got a list of names, about 500 names from the state for candidates to come in. We saw probably about 20 people come in out of that 500 and actually sign to participate. And right now, we're probably going to be interviewing less than half a dozen.
And
for
to
slots.
back to what Gordon had asked earlier in terms of what we can do, is that civil service component or eliminating it, is that something you need to bring to us? Is that going to be a discussion or a vote, if you will, or?
Correct. That would be something that would eventually have to come before the council. I am speaking to the Human Resources Director, the legal department, and engaging Mark Ells as well in this conversation, as well as our collective bargaining units. This is something we are heavily discussing right now currently. But there is a process that it has to be go through, and eventually that would entail coming before the council at some point.
Great. I just think with this whole effort that the leadership is doing, it's another component. So thank you for explaining that.
It's also being addressed. So, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, great explanation. But just to follow up, I think Town Manager Ells has his hand raised just to
Thank
his
you.
input. Thank
Mark
you, sir.
Ells, Town Manager. Yes, it's being addressed. It is not part of the core discussion about market competitiveness, even though it runs in parallel with that discussion, and it will impact that discussion. So I would expect, probably on a different timeline, we will be bringing in the discussion about our civil service, which is from our patrol people right up through the chief of police in Barnstable. We will be bringing that discussion into town council. A change from what currently exists does take town council approval. But we also, as already identified, work with collective bargaining units. This is absolutely a discussion item with our workforce, with our collective bargaining units, and what we'll probably do in the near future is, with Bill Cole, Chief, Andy, Mark Mellon, and myself, bring in that process to go from start to finish and what's involved. And then, working with leadership and council, set a strategy and then proceed with it. But it'll take time, and it'll absolutely involve council and a vote from council.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Council Lucky. Council Rep Grissetti, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to follow up in my discussion with Chief, looking at the proximity to the employment, so we see a lot of people coming over the bridge from Plymouth, and I know that's a stickler for your department. You've got to be within so many miles of the town, so I'm sure you'll be looking at that to open the pool of candidates, or at least I hope you do, and certainly I would support that.
That is correct, and those discussions are going on right now, too.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Thank you, Council Rep Grissetti. Any other questions, comments on this side, to my right and to my left? Okay, not seeing anything. Thank you very much, Chief Sonnabend. And move to a vote, please, Town Clerk Anquark.
Councilors Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rap Grissetti.
Yes.
That is 13 yes, it passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Have a great night. Madam Vice President, if you could please, item number 2023-186.
Yes, item 2023-186, transfer order in the amount of $91,825 from the fiscal year 2023 Community Service Department personnel budgets to the fiscal year 2023 Community Service operating expenditure budgets for the purpose of funding outside professional services, equipment, supplies, and materials as written. This is a roll call majority vote.
Second.
First and second, and Director Chris Canella for the rationale, please.
Yes, good evening, President Levesque, Town Council, Chris Canella, Interim Director of Community Services. This request is to transfer and utilize a portion of fiscal year 2023 salary savings from divisions within the Community Services Department for numerous needs. Transferring these savings presents an opportunity to produce outside professional assistance to purchase equipment, supplies, and materials that were not included in the original fiscal year 23 operating budget. Recreation is requesting to utilize $30,225 of the projected $100,000 salary savings to purchase portable scores table for recreation programs, new credit card machines, aquatic equipment supplies. The Hyannis Youth and Community Center is requesting to utilize $11,000 of the projected $50,000 in HYCC Enterprise Fund salaries savings to purchase, upgrade the website. So anybody who's tried to use the website for HYCC, we're trying to piggyback on what planning and development has done and improve the user-friendliness of that website. And the golf division is requesting to utilize $50,600 of the projected $80,000 in golf enterprise salary budget savings to purchase a commercial ball washer for the driving range, Toro replacement parts for the golf equipment, a solar aerator for the pond at the Hyannis Golf Course between holes 4 and 14, an organic lime application throughout all of the golf courses, an ocean glass organic kelp, which is one of the bioproducts we use in our land care management program. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Director Canella, and appreciate the rationale. And looking to my left, any comments or questions in regards to this item? Looking to my right, anybody? Council Leckie, please.
I mean, it may be a silly thing, but those credit card machines, when you go to public skating, if you're going to replace those, that is going to be a godsend. Those things are just awful. They're so antique. I mean, I take my kids to the public skating quite a bit, so that's going to be really, really nice. I mean, seriously, it's a small thing, but it adds up cumulatively. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment, too. I have 4 children. We go to public skating as well, and I wanted to do the transfer, and it's like 45 seconds. They're asking my hair type and blood type, and I'm like, I can spend $1,000 somewhere else. Why is this so complicated? And working with staff, it's like, if we have 400 people and it takes 45 seconds for a transaction, it becomes frustrating. And I'm glad you said public skating, not free skating. Thank you.
No, the public, it's true, the line just goes on forever because yeah. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Just bring back the knuckle crunchers. So much more efficient. So, just saying. Any other question, comment? Council Starr, please.
I just have a question. So, somebody told me that, is this true that both rinks are going to be open all summer? Is that a decision that's been made?
Yes, it has. We have support from DPW, and we are booking ice and selling ice all summer long. Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you.
Excellent. Good news. All right. Any other discussion in regards to this item? Okay. Not seeing any. We do a roll call vote, please. Town Clerk and Quirk.
Councilors Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapcrossetti,
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
That is 13 yes, it passes.
Thank you very much.
What?
Okay. Last item of new business. Council Starr, please. Item number 2023-187. You need to settle down here. Settle down.
Thank you, President Levesque. This is new business. Refer to a public hearing on May 18th, 2023. This is number 2023-187. Appropriation order in the amount of $86,758 for the purpose of funding the acquisition of equipment to assist with the implementation of the Greening the Gateway City program and authorization to expend the fiscal year 2024 to 2026 Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs Greening the Gateway Cities program grant in the amount of $1,800,000.
Second.
A first and a second. And
Anybody speak for this one?
who's here for the rationale?
No, it's referred
Oh, it's
to
a referral.
public
Sorry, I apologize. We discussed about who was doing the national this past Monday, and so I just had that on my mind. I apologize. Thank you. Such a long title. For referring to a public hearing, so if you can signify your approval, council, by raising your hand and saying aye. That's unanimous. Thank you so much. And that's the last item of new business. So moving on to old business, but why don't we take a 5-minute break first, and we'll come back and start the school budget, the school items from the capital improvement plan, item number 2023-111. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody back. Town Council meeting, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. First item of old business. Moving down the line here, Councilor Schnepp. Also, actually, first I'd like to welcome, we're going into the capital improvement plan budget once again, and we have the Superintendent of Schools, Sarah Hearn, and Facilities Director, Michael Lambros, with us. And so we're going to start with item number 2023-111. Councilor Schnepp, if you can help me out, please.
This is an item of old business requiring a public hearing and a roll call vote of 2/3 of the full council. Item number 2023-111, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $400,000 for the purpose of funding the Cobb Astro Park exterior insulation finish system replacement project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024 to fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan as written.
We have a first and a second, and back to you, Superintendent Ahern, for the rationale, please.
Great.
Or do you want to do any introductions?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, happy to be here. Sarah Ahern, Superintendent of Schools here in Barnstable. And I'm joined by, as President Levesque said, Mike Lambros, who is our Director of Facilities. Really thank you for taking up and considering these capital projects. I'll turn it over to Mike to share the rationale for this first one.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Mike Lambros, Facilities Director of Public Schools. All right, so a wall section in the Barnstable High School Cobb Astro Park has experienced leaks and debonding of the EFIS, the exterior insulation finish system. This project will consist of demolition and replacement of the existing wall section EFIS, sheathing, metal stud framing. The replacement will consist of phenolic rain screen paneling. Below is a little example of what phenolic rain screen paneling is. The appropriation will also fund the investigation and assessment of the existing conditions at all remaining locations with EFIS at Barnstable High School. You can see some pictures of deteriorating studs and headers above the windows. And the wall section being replaced is the far right of the Astro Park with the, you can see EFIS, window EFIS. It's a really small picture. I apologize for that. And project justification, the leaks and debonding have caused extreme deterioration of the sheathing and stud frames. There's been a temporary repair made in order to make the existing conditions safe. However, the existing condition will require replacement as a permanent solution. And then the other pictures are remaining EFIS throughout the district, or throughout the school that we will be investigating with this appropriation as well.
Thank you for that, for the rationale. And this is a public hearing. Would anybody here like to speak on this item? Not seeing any. Is there anybody who would like to participate remotely?
There is no one for this item on Zoom.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would close the public hearing and come back for council discussion. Anybody have any questions in regards to this item? Looking to my left, looking to my right. Anyone? Councilor Luckey, please.
Just curious, you're going to replace with a whole new type of finish? You talk about the debonding and stuff. Was it just a poor installation or just the nature of what's on there? Is it going to be a different finish?
Yes, it's going to be a different finish. So phenolic paneling, sorry, let me go back a slide for you. So we're going to use phenolic paneling, which is another type of rain screening. If you're familiar with, I don't have a picture of it, I apologize. The back of the main calf, the mural with the athletes, that's the phenolic paneling. Yeah.
Any other questions on this side? Okay. Not seeing any. Move to a vote, please. Town Clerk Ann Quirk.
Councilors Mendes,
Yes.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Atzelis.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Cullum.
Yes.
Cusack.
Yes.
Rapcorsetti.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
And Ludke.
Yes.
That's 13 yes. Passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item, Councilor Rapcasetti, please, if you could, item number 2023-112.
Yes, Mr. President, this is old business, public hearing, roll call, 2/3 vote for the full council. Item 2023-112, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $1 million for the purpose of funding the campus-wide door and window replacement project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024, fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan as written.
Second.
Thank you. First and a second, and we have Michael for the rationale, please.
Thank you. So this is a continuation of the appropriation from FY23 to replace the windows that have increasingly become inoperable. Many of these windows have been secured closed due to safety concerns. The current windows and doors are drafty, damp, and will be replaced with energy-efficient windows. New doors will also be integrated with BPS RFID entry system. This allows the schools to be more secure on a day-to-day basis. The main entry doors will also be upgraded to include redundancy through a locked vestibule. The current system allows a visitor to be buzzed into the building and then screened at the front desk. The new system will secure the interior set of doors, and the screening system will be located in the vestibule, allowing the visitor to be screened before they're giving access to the building. Justification for this project: the existing doors and windows are becoming a safety and security issue, with continuous maintenance needs to ensure normal operation in safe condition.
Thank you. Is anyone here that would like to speak on this item? Not seeing any. Is there anybody who would like to participate remotely?
There is no one on Zoom for this item.
Thank you. And I will close the public hearing and bring it back for council discussion. Anybody to my left? Anybody to my right? Councilor Schnepp, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mike. Do you have a schedule of which schools and which windows are going to be replaced this year?
Yes, so the FY23 appropriation was for BCIS. That is in the design phase. We're hoping to get that out to bid in the next 2 months. This will be additional funding if needed at BCIS. Also, we're going to focus on the main entry, the vestibules with this appropriation, and Centerville, the back side of the front section of Centerville. The original section has the original windows still.
Oh, okay. Now, did you mention that some of the windows have been closed due to safety concerns? Does that mean that they used to be windows that could be open but now have been closed?
Correct. We've had instances where the windows will blow open. As people open them, they'll fall in. So because of that, there's several windows that have been securely fastened shut.
Okay. And in the replacement, will those be windows that could be opened, or are they?
Yeah,
Okay.
operable windows.
Okay.
Where necessary. For example, at Centerville, we'll be using a CalWall system. If you're familiar with Barnstable, West Barnstable, the bottom will be translucent glazing, and the top will be it's a fiber reinforced polymer. So you can't see through, but it allows the daylight through.
Okay.
Similar to BWB, if you can picture those.
I know that we don't have air conditioning in most of our schools. Okay. So I guess being able to open windows is a good thing. So.
Yeah, much needed.
Thank you, Councilor Schnepp. Any other questions on this side, this item? Looking to my left again. Okay. Not seeing any. We move to a vote, please. Town Clerk and Quirk for the roll call.
Councilors Neary,
Yes.
Schnepp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapcasetti,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Passes 13 yes.
Thank you. Councilor Cusack, if you could, please, item number 2023-113.
Yes, my pleasure. Mr. President, this is old business requiring a public hearing, roll call vote of the majority of the full council. This is item 2023-113, an appropriation order in the amount of $350,000 for the purpose of funding the campus-wide paving and sidewalk repair project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024 to 2028 capital improvement plan.
Second.
First and a second. Rationale, please, Mr. Lambros.
Thank you. So this is a $350,000 appropriation. So we will be resurfacing parking lots and repairing sidewalks as needed. Many of these existing sidewalks have degraded over time, causing holes and heaves. The justification, safety and maintenance. Many of these existing parking lots and sidewalks have degraded, causing potential hazards. The locations will continue to deteriorate, causing a hazard to increase until properly repaired. Also, with this appropriation, we will be improving our ADA compliance. I wanted to add that.
Thank you for that. And this is a public hearing. Anybody like to speak on this item? Anybody like to speak remotely? Director Poyan.
There is no one on Zoom for this item.
Thank you very much. And moving it back to the council. Anybody to my left like to speak on this item? Anybody to my right? Council Rep Cressetti and now Council Lucky, please.
The photograph you show, I'm not sure if repaving is going to help that situation. That looks like a drainage problem. Are you prepared to work on the drainage when you? Okay.
Yes, at that location, part of the repaving will consist of drainage.
Okay, thanks.
Council Lucky, please.
Thank you. I'm just curious, on your sidewalk repairs, you're going to be doing any curb repair as well with that?
Where needed. So particularly at Hyannis West, yes, we would be doing some curb repair. If the curb's in a condition where we could save it, we will, but
Okay.
when needed.
Do you use those granite curbs, or do you just have I guess the...
Granite curbing.
You do? Okay. Why do we use the granite curbs? I'm just curious. There was a rather lively discussion on next door the other day of how many people have gashed their tires on those granite curbs. I just wonder why I'm just curious.
I couldn't give you an answer for that. I'd have to review. I can get you a reason for why granite as opposed to additional curbing.
That's longer.
Any other questions? I'm sorry, Council Atzis.
Could it just be poor driving that maybe they're getting their flat tires? I'm just wondering.
Town Manager Mark Ells, please.
Good evening, Mark Ells, Town Manager. If I remember from my Public Works days correctly, you can either go asphalt, concrete, or granite. All are there for safety reasons. The granite is a permanent vertical opportunity to prevent a vehicle primarily from going over that curb. When you get into concrete, typically you're looking at forming it, having the devices to do that. Asphalt is a little less reliable, but can be used. I wouldn't recommend it at a facility such as a school where you are looking to guarantee for a long term. So we do look to use granite. If Mike asks our staff, they would recommend that.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Okay, thank
Especially,
you.
I think, in a school environment.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Town Manager Ells. Thank you, Council Lucky. I know $350,000 is a lot of money. So, and I'm sorry if I missed it in the book, but I didn't see what priority is kind of taking place. I know we see this picture, but is there certain schools? How do you format a priority in regards to that? Because I know, for example, I've spent a lot of time at the 4th and 5th grade school. That parking lot gets a lot of use because of the fields there, and being even that gym over there. And I know that sidewalk has some damage to it. The curbing, even people driving and scooping over the asphalt, pieces and things of that nature that have been, kind of hanging around a little bit. So that all being said, how do you prioritize? Is there a certain school that's being utilized this year, or addressed this year, excuse me?
Yes, so again, this is campus-wide for all of our schools. So with the 9 schools, $350,000 unfortunately doesn't go as far as, we can't do all the schools in one year. We do plan to start at Hyannis West, Centerville, and this is actually a picture behind Hyannis West, their early learning center. And the sidewalks at Hyannis West, the parking lot behind Early Learning Center. Centerville needs work to add additional parking spaces, so that will be more than just resurfacing. And then also BWB, the sidewalks drastically need help.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Councilor Hatsos, please.
Thank you. Mike, you mentioned Centerville Elementary, Bay Lane. I know that field, the fields across the street are planned to be redone. And am I correct in part of that's going to be improving that parking area next to the Stone Dust Field? Is that part of your plan? At
Correct.
some point? Yeah, okay, great.
So I've actually been in contact with the town architect, Mark Marnaccio, about that project.
Thank you for that. Good question. Anything else? Okay. Not seeing any. Move to a vote, please. Town Clerk and Quirk, please.
Councilors Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis.
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapgrassetti,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary.
Yes.
13 yes, it passes.
Thank you, Town Clerk and Quirk. And now for Council Lucky, if you could please, item number 2023-114.
Thank you. This is old business. It's a public hearing, roll call with 2/3 a vote of the full council. Item 2023-114, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $500,000 for the purpose of funding the Barnstable High School Culinary Arts Kitchen Improvements Project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024, fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan.
Second.
First and a second, Mr. Lambros, with the rationale, please.
Thank you. So the description of this project is to design and install a full-service culinary, commercial culinary arts type kitchen at the Barnstable High School. The project will include HVAC, commercial exhaust equipment, and all necessary infrastructure to support a culinary arts Massachusetts Skills Capital Grant Program. Project justification. Addition of this facility would provide the necessary teaching space to prepare students who are interested in pursuing a career in the food service industry. Barnstable Public Schools has already received a matching grant for $50,000 for equipment and design. Additionally, BHS has just this spring applied for an additional grant fund for this project with the potential of up to $500,000 for equipment. The existing space is not code compliant. We have gas-fired stoves without exhaust hoods. Existing program can only accommodate about 100 students. 200 try to enroll every year, select this course, and so that leaves about 80 to 100 that are on the waiting list per year. There will be an advisory board with the community, internships in the community, and also being told that articulating credits with Cape Cod Community College.
Very good. This is a public hearing. Anybody like to speak on this item? Anybody like to participate remotely via Zoom?
There's no one for this item.
Zoomy Zoom. Thank you. So I'm going to close the public hearing, open up to council discussion. Look into my left, please. Councilor
very
Clark,
much.
please.
Thank you, President Levesque. Good luck with that grant funding application. That looks like a really promising collaboration with the college and would what do I want to say? Service our constituents well, given our service industry here on the Cape. Thanks.
Thank you.
I would mirror that thing. Yeah, it very much addresses the need, so to speak, for employment here in the town, Cape-wide. Madam Vice President, please.
Yes, a couple of things. What I really like about the program now exists. My son is in it, and he enjoys it, although he won't cook for me. I don't know why. But the thing that's really good is there's an opportunity to take the ServSafe certificate, which, automatically is a leg up when you want to work at an ice cream shop, because that's the 16-year-old job, right? So it's really helpful that that's there. So I think it's a great program to grow, especially because we live in an area where it depends a lot upon restaurant workers. Is there any inclination to get the food truck that never moves from the spot it's in involved in this?
Yeah, so actually, it came up at school committee last night. Kristen Harmon, assistant superintendent, was talking about it in her report. It is now fully permitted, and there will be a soft launch of the food truck coming up soon, and more to come.
That's great. Thank you.
Great question, Madam Vice President. Councilor Starr, please.
Thank you, President Levesque. My question is, there are gas stoves in there now without hoods. Are you going to put in hoods or put in induction stoves?
So at this time, there'd be both. There would be induction at the teaching station is the current design on an island.
Okay.
And the perimeter of the space will have gas stoves, industry standard, with hoods.
Okay, thanks.
Any other? Councilor Luckey, please.
Yeah, I had a question. Is this kitchen as robust as the kitchens you'd find at the technical school? And I ask because, that to get in the tech school is merit-based, so not everybody's going to make it. So that's why I think it's fantastic you have this as an option for those who don't make it into the tech school. But I'm just curious, because you talk about the internship and things like that, it kind of seems to model the tech school. Is this an equivalent program to what the tech school provides?
I don't want to speak to what the tech school provides. I haven't seen their kitchens. However, I will speak to the Cape Cod Community College. I met with one of the school committee members works there. She took me in, and I got to meet the director of their culinary program. And if it's anything what they have, that's what we're shooting for. Yes, a commercial culinary kitchen.
I would say expanding the culinary program in this way would approximate what the technical school is providing, and could allow for future funding, from the Department of Education under Chapter 74. So we have Perkins funding now, and that could, by expanding it and demonstrating kind of this growth, we may be eligible for more funding from the department.
No, I think that's great. I just look at your slide. The demand is certainly there, so fantastic.
Any other questions? Madam Vice Chair.
Just a clarification, but your program will be 1 year, not a 4-year study of culinary arts, right? Yours is right now it's 1 year that when you enroll in it as an elective.
I think there's a sequence that students can pursue through a
Oh,
pathway.
cool. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question? So I have a couple of questions. So Chapter 74, I'm assuming in layman's terms that is vocational monies that we can, as a public high school, going after that. I have to say that is commendable that you would do that for our students and really filling a void to do that. Not every public high school would necessarily go ahead and do something like that. So I commend you for it. I know sometimes you might get some pushback in regards to that, possibly when you because it's competitive, So, but again, thank you for that, because that is so important. As Council Luckey had said, there are so many students that it could be their livelihood, and they would not be able to get into a vocational high school in that program. And I understand that you're working against, design is working against you. So with that, I think it's important the public understand that you're making a move that's not necessarily easy to make. And, when a technical high school gets built, that if you walk into that place as a palace, you walk into that kitchen, that back of the house is bigger than the front of the house. And there's lots of room there. So I really appreciate you thinking ahead. It goes along with environmental science. I have these conversations with Town Manager Els over the last 3 years about the school going ahead and putting together something. And, you know, and again, I don't want to go off too much, but the entrepreneurship, all these types of things that the school and really maps out and stays to the career pathways that you are trying to create. So I appreciate that. And yeah, that's all. You answered my questions. I appreciate that. Any other discussion in regards to this item? Okay, not seeing any. Move to a vote, please. Town Clerk and Quirk.
Counselors, Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapcorsetti,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
13 yes.
Thank you, and I look forward specifically, I know we're going to move on, but to see what's going to happen with that program. Really excited about it. Thank you. Next item, Councilor Shaughnessy, please. Item number 2023-115.
Thank you, President Levesque. Subject to a public hearing and a roll call majority vote of the full council, this is item number 2023-115, appropriation order in the amount of $250,000 for the purpose of funding the campus-wide mechanical upgrades project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024, fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan, as read.
We have a first and a second. Back to you, Mr. Lambros, the rationale.
Thank you. So this is a $250,000 appropriation, district-wide boiler burners and pump upgrades. Justification, much of our existing equipment is 30 years old and requires replacement and/or upgrades. Denial or postponement of this project could result in a heating system failure, which would with the possibility of facility damage due to frozen pipes. I do want to note that BWB, Centerville, and Hyannis West all have existing boilers in those schools that are currently operable and are over 50 years old.
Thank you for the rationale. This is a public hearing. Anybody in here like to speak to this item? Not seeing any. Is anybody in Zoom land?
There's no one silent.
Just trying to keep it fresh. So I would close the public hearing and council discussion, please. Anybody to my left? Councilor Neary, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Mr. Lambros. These projects obviously have to get done off-season. So can you get all of this work done in the amount of time that you need to before next fiscal year? It's a lot of big, heavy hardware going into these schools. So I'm just curious. I assume you'll go out and request for bids for anybody that's DCAM certified, and so it's going to be kind of chop, right? It's going to happen.
Yes, correct. So this funding, this appropriation, we obviously wouldn't get till this July. So that would give us the next, the FY23, most of FY23, to get this out to bid and be able to have that project for, as we like to call them in the schools industry, summer slammers. So that gives us about 8 to 10 weeks to get a project like this completed. We've done larger with the rooftop unit projects at the high school. It all has to fall into place perfectly, but yes, it is doable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Neary. Any questions? Looking to my left. Looking to my right. Any questions on this item? Okay, not seeing any. Move to a vote, please. Town Clerk and Quirk.
Counselors, Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack.
Yes.
Rapcorsetti.
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy.
Yes.
That's 13 yes, it passes.
Thank you, Town Clerk and Quirk. Moving on to the next item, coming back to my left, Councilor Clark, please. Item number 2023-116.
Thank you very much, President Levesque. This is agenda item 2023-116. It's old business requiring a public hearing with a roll call majority vote of the full council. This is the appropriation order in the amount of $250,000 for the purpose of funding the Night Hall chiller replacement project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024, fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan.
First and a second, Mr. Lambros for the rationale, please.
Thank you. So this project, $250,000 appropriation for the replacement of the Night Hall chiller is scheduled for FY24. The Performing Arts Center is scheduled for FY27. The Night Hall chiller is no longer operational, leaving the space without proper cooling until replaced. The space becomes extremely warm during those late spring and early fall months, and students are housed in the space daily. The existing chiller is over 25 years old.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is anybody here like to speak on this item? Okay, not seeing any. Is there anybody who would like to participate remotely?
There is not.
Thank you. And coming back to the council for discussion to talk about the chiller. Anybody? Anybody to my right? Okay, Night Hall. Overheated right now. No chiller. So if we could vote on that, please. Town Clerk Ankwork.
Councilors Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapcorsetti,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
13 yes, it passes.
Thank you. Moving on to our next item of old business. Council Steinhilber, if you could, please, item number 2023-117.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under old business, item 2023-117, appropriation order in the amount of $1 million for the purpose of funding the Barnstable High School Phase 2 softball field upgrade project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024 to fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan as written. I'd like to open the public hearing.
Second.
First and a second, Mr. Lambros for the rationale, please.
Thank you. So, $1 million appropriation. This project is a continuation of a three-phase plan to improve the athletic fields at Barnstable High School. The FY24 appropriation would be used for engineering and the planning segment of Phase 2 field improvements. This phase includes the improvements to the varsity softball field. The work would consist of level and grading, reorienting of the current field, and improvements to natural turf surfaces and irrigation systems. We will reorient the field, which would allow softball to utilize the support buildings constructed during Phase 1 for the multipurpose field. We would also value engineer natural grass versus artificial turf. Justification for this project: softball is the only outdoor sports team that has not had an upgrade to their playing field thus far. Upgrades to our sports facilities will bring the playing area to a Division I standard, providing a safe condition while attracting student athletes and pay-for-play sport organizations as well. Just want to show on this page, this is a good aerial view of the high school. So you can see the turf and track, which was just replaced this past summer, so that's not shown on the Google image here. You can also see the multi-purpose field, the Phase 1, the baseball and soccer field. We also play field hockey on that. So you can see the support buildings, about center right side of that picture. And you see the sidewalk. Looks like it's just abandoned going to the outfield, left field of the softball field. So the plan is to reorient that softball field and bring home plate back, so it would be hitting 180 degrees away from the home plate of the baseball field. So it would be more of a complex build.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Is anybody here like to participate in public hearing? Not seeing any. Is anybody like to participate via Zoom?
There is no one for this item.
Thank you very much. Close the public hearing. Open the council discussion. Looking to my right. Council Rapcorsetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you remind us what you paid, what we appropriated for Phase 1?
Phase 1, I don't know what the original appropriation was. I do know the final was 5.7.
The final for all three phases?
No, the final for Phase 1 was 5.7 million.
5.7, so we're appropriating $1 million, so we're up to 6.1, and then future is 2.1. So we're looking at, close to $10 million for an upgrade of the softball fields?
This is all of the fields on both Barnstable High School and Barnstable Intermediate School.
All the
Yeah,
softball fields we're talking about?
No, all sports fields.
All sports
Correct,
fields?
yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Phase 1 was a multi-purpose field.
Okay.
Baseball, soccer, and field hockey.
Okay,
So, yeah.
Right,
So
and-
this Phase 2 is for the softball field.
okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Council Lucky, please.
I just had a question about the value engineering process, because I believe that multipurpose field, that's artificial turf. And you said you were going to value engineer between, the real turf and, I guess, artificial. How has that artificial performed? Are you going to use any of that to inform your decision? Or I'm just curious how you're going to inform the decision on what to do with the turf, whether it's natural or artificial.
So the value engineering will consist of cost and also maintenance and costs associated with that maintenance. But you can get about 80 hours of play for every per maintenance cycle on artificial turf. And natural grass, it's about 30 to 40 hours of play per maintenance cycle, so every week. So we'll also include the athletic director and the student athletes to see if turf is the direction they want to go, because we've gotten some feedback on the baseball field that it's a much different sport. That ball comes off the turf fast. So it's not clay. It doesn't slow the ball down if you hit a ground ball. It's nice you don't get those divots. You won't get a ball to jump on you, but it's a different sport. So when I say that, it's still softball, but it plays very different. So we will take all things into consideration, yes.
Yeah, that's why I was curious,
Yeah.
because value engineer, I'm used to it just being cost, and I think there might, so that's nice and there's other factors. And here's something I don't know, maybe President Levesque knows this, but is there an ideal orientation for a field based on the sun? I don't know. I mean, is that a consideration or no? It's just, it goes where you fit it.
That's a great question, because afternoon sun may potentially not work out for this orientation. So we may have to shift a few degrees because of that. But that's a great question, yeah.
Okay, so you'll be considering that then?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Council Starr, please.
Quickly, are there going to be any lights? Lights on these fields?
At this time, this $1 million appropriation does not include lights.
Okay. And I also like the fact that you're getting artificial turf that doesn't have any PFOs in it. I think that's part of the process.
Correct. We
Yep.
would bid it the same as we bid the previous fields.
Thank you.
Anything else on this side? I would agree with Council Lucky. That was going to be my question, quite honestly. Having sons that played on those fields, the orientation of the sun, I think, would be, and I'm glad you're doing that, because I was going to mention that. It's nice to have that kind of back-to-back home plate center eye, that's great. But at the same time, and with softball, I'm assuming when you say it's faster play with the shorter baselines, it can become a danger factor if you use the artificial turf, even if it's a softball, because these ladies hit the ball pretty hard. It's coming at them pretty quickly, and they can get it out pretty quickly with bigger bats and things of that nature. So I appreciate the fact that, hopefully safety is made into consideration in regards to that. And I'm assuming this doesn't include the JV freshman field at all. That's going to stay status quo?
Correct.
Okay. Is there, has that field been redone at all, or is there it's just constant maintenance, it's just staying the way it is with the maintenance program that you currently have?
Correct. The current, we plan to bring JV, you're talking JV freshman softball, correct?
No, I'm sorry, the JV field, the other field, baseball field that's out, what is currently now like center right field from the softball field?
Just typical maintenance. We do reseed, because you can see the Silver Bullets practice on that football field. You can kind of see their trench in the middle. We have been reseeding. This is an older picture. It's
I
starting
can tell that, yeah. You have reseeded, yes, sir.
We have, yeah.
I know that, yes. Thanks. So I'm just curious what the plan was. Like, is that going to be part of the next phase then?
That's part of Phase 3, yes.
Okay. And then what about the other side with the tennis courts? Is there ever, I know that was a part of the original plan as well. Is that phase 5?
Exactly. So Phase 2 was originally all of the high school side.
Right.
We've broken that down into just softball.
Okay.
As an equity standpoint.
I was just going to say.
Yeah. So, yes, that would have to be after, because the rest, Phase 3 would be the rest of the high school side of the fields, and then behind the tennis courts would be Phase 4, or 5.
And I think that's important because that was my next question, that this is an equity issue as far as the boys' sports versus girls' sports. And I think that's important, and I'm glad you made it, did what you had to do to kind of make that happen, Tim. So thank you for addressing that. Any other questions in regards to this item? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Atlas.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. And I know that many of these decisions were made before you got here. So I know you're trying to answer what maybe your predecessor was involved with. I do recall that one of the reasons that turf was selected was easier to maintain, because as I think many of us on this dais are well aware that the grass fields were maintained poorly, and that's not a reflection of you. You weren't here at the time. And the hope was that the turf fields would be easier to maintain, better maintained, and you have the equipment to maintain the turf fields now. So one of my questions is the machine that you have for the football field, and is that also the same machine that can be used for the multi-purpose field and eventually for this new softball field?
Correct. Yes, we actually we have 2 of the machines now.
Okay.
Because we put it into the bid with the multipurpose field. So we have one for the multipurpose field, slightly larger.
Yeah.
As you can see, that's a lot more square footage.
Okay.
So yes, it can be.
And then since the topic of orientation came up, I just know that, and this is, again, I'm probably talking to folks as if they don't know this, but they probably do. You would not want to put the infield of the softball field facing west, because as we know now, the Little League field, that field, we'd have to stop play for a few minutes until the sun went down because the batters couldn't see the ball coming in. So I just obviously, I'm sure you.
Yes. So just because the questions come up several times, due south it's almost the center of that image. So we will not be, it will be southeast, maybe south-southeast.
Great. Okay. And actually, the other question I had, the practice football field and the practice football field / lacrosse field, are those part of the subsequent phases as well?
Yes.
Because we know that those are, knee injuries waiting to happen, if not already happening, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Atzos. Any other questions? Vice President Cullum, do you have a question?
I just wanted to extend a thanks to you, Mike, for constantly answering my emails about the Babe Ruth field, because I know it's not your deal, and it's really important to the community that doesn't make the baseball team for BHS that they have a place to play. So thank you for always answering my irrigation questions and for firing it up. They're psyched. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and I think it's also a good moment to put a thank you out to really the collaboration that I witnessed with the new athletic director, Steve Sentis, and he is a constant presence there at the fields and games, everything that I've attended. He's definitely been there, and I appreciate that, and him, always talking about working with you in regards to keeping fields open, practice, and different things. It's really, I think, a very exciting time with everything that's happening with your arrival here, Superintendent Ahern, and so I just want to make sure that that's said, that collaboration is appreciated and observed. Thank you. Okay, with that being said, move to a vote, please. Town Clerk Anquirk.
Councilors Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapcorsetti.
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
That's 13 yes, it passes.
Thank you very much. Council Mendes, if you could please, item number 2023-118.
This is old business. Item number 2023-118, appropriation and transfer order in the amount of $750,000 for the purpose of funding the West Villages Elementary Carpet Removal Project, as outlined in the fiscal year 2024, fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan. This is referred to a public hearing. Roll call majority vote of the full council.
Second.
First and a second, Mr. Lambros, final rationale for the day, please.
Thank you. So this is West Villages Elementary School, $750,000 appropriation. This is actually consists of general fund, reserve, and transfers, which I'll get to. So we're going to remove all the carpet throughout the school and replace it with resilient floor systems. What options that we're looking at are rubber, terrazzo, or LVP, luxury vinyl plank. All options would eliminate the need for annual stripping and waxing. Thus, this would save both on material and labor. The majority of the summer weeks are spent stripping and waxing the floors, so that would free up our custodial workforce for other projects. Project justification, this is our only school remaining with carpet in every classroom. These carpets are original to the building and becoming more and more difficult to maintain. Removal of the carpets will improve the indoor air quality of the entire school. I do also want to add that during COVID, this is a K-3 school, and we ate lunch in these classrooms for 2 years. A lot of syrup and milk on the floors. So we do have these carpets commercially cleaned every year, but there's only so much a steam cleaner can do.
And ants?
We have a pest management system and an IPM, so we manage. So onto the transfers. We're transferring two projects, 2019-101 and 2019-102. The original appropriations were $450 and $250. The current balance for each $441,549 and 50 cents, $239,605.55, for a original total appropriation was $750. The balance is $681,156.05. So coming out of reserves would be $68,843.95. So these projects, I don't have the titles. I should have added those in. I apologize. The first appropriation, the 101, was the Hyannis West Elementary School roof replacement, and the Centerville Elementary School was the 102 roof replacement.
Thank you for that. This is a public hearing. Anybody like to speak on this item? Anybody like to speak remotely?
There is no one for this item.
Okay, thank you. Coming back to council discussion. Councilor Rapcosetti, please.
I'm a little confused. So the original appropriation for the roof, the High West roof replacement, and you didn't spend the money, or tell us what happened?
So this original appropriation was FY19, FY19. By the time design and engineering came around, this was the previous director. By the time designing and engineering came around, the funds were not sufficient to complete the project. Since then, we've used some of these funds for an evaluation of both roofs. We do understand we have roughly 10 more years at Hyannis West. Centerville, not so much, but you'll probably see that in the next few years.
So this money was used for assessment of both systems? Okay,
Correct.
thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Rapcosetti. Any questions? Councilor Starr, please.
I just had one question, please. The contingency fund is $200,000. Is that because you're not sure about which materials to use, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a large difference in price from rubber to vinyl. Terrazzo is roughly $13 a square foot compared to $4 to $6 for rubber.
Thank you. Any other comment, question on this side? Looking to my left. Okay, not seeing any. And again, I closed the public hearing. All right, I think we're ready to move on the magic carpet removal. So, Town Clerk Ankwork, the vote, please.
Counselors Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rappacetti,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis.
Yes.
That's 13 yes, it passes.
Thank you. It's unanimous. Well, thank you very much.
You're done.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. We'll see you in June. Yes. Looking to the council as a director service comes up for the budget items. Does anybody need a break? If not, moving forward. Okay, we'll keep it going. And of course, if you need to leave the dais for any reason, by all means, we're going to keep it going. And like to welcome Director of our airport, Katie Service, with us.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yes, is your microphone's on, correct?
On, yes,
Okay,
thank you.
great, good to hear. Councilor Atzelis, if you could please, item number 2023-119.
Yes, Mr. President, this is old business. Item number 2023-119, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $1,015,864 for the purpose of funding the HVAC upgrades to the airport terminal and tower project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024, fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan. This is a public hearing. Roll call, 2/3 vote of the full council.
Second.
We have first and a second, and back to Director Service for the rationale, please.
Great, thank you. In 2011, the terminal and the tower were constructed. I can't believe it's been 12 years. But during that time, the heating and the air conditioning system are starting to show their age, particularly in the tower is in need of replacement. Over the past year, the airport has been required to conduct more than routine maintenance on the system, although we do have maintenance performed twice per year under contract. The tower system is actually in failure. We have implemented various temporary fixes, and we're proceeding forward with a final solution to handle the situation that we have there. The equipment itself was installed in 2011 but is now obsolete. Sanyo is the system that we have. They ended the line of HVAC equipment that is in place in the tower, and the company that actually installed the system is no longer in business. So replacement parts have been very difficult to come by, if at all available to us. We needed a new compressor just recently, and it took us 7 months from delivery to when it was actually on site at the airport. Multiple compressors have since failed and have led to poor power supply in the building. Based on discussions with HVAC design experts, the 2011 installation was an antiquated system when it was installed, unfortunately, and it began with a really poor design with a lack of redundancy in the system. So any issues, this means that any issues in the system that we see come online, it affects the entire system. There's no way to segregate it. Recent oil leaks and refrigerant leaks have damaged the control boards and the power supply. So as you can see, we're having a problem with HVAC in this building. We are implementing an emergency solution to the building within the next couple of weeks. And we have a future final solution that will be under design or is under design right now with a bid going out in July for the system. Right now, the funding anticipated for this is just over $1 million, with 95% being funded by the FAA and MassDOT, with a 5% share by the airport. I will tell you that we may be coming back to this body once we receive bids for the project, just in case there is additional funds that are required. We're finding that in our review of the specifications to develop the bids, we're finding parts and supplies are much more expensive than we anticipated when we looked at this original estimate in July of 2022. That's all I have for rationale.
Thank you, Director Service. This is a public hearing. Is anybody here like to speak on this item? Not seeing any. Anybody like to participate via Zoom?
There is no one for this item.
Close the public hearing and move to council discussion. Anybody like to speak on this item? Councilor Schnapp, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Katie. Just a general question. Have we allocated all of the CARES Act money that came into the airport?
Yes, so the CARES Act money, we have used that for two different reasons. One, for operating budget for the eligible items for operating, and we've also used it for 3 development projects. The development projects include an extension of Mary Dunn Way, which has proved to be fruitful because we now have hangars that are being built along that stretch of roadway. We also have a replacement of one of our T hangars that has a 6-bay storage unit for aircraft. And we are refurbishing and remodeling our fixed-base operation, our operations building. I will say that it's probably one of the worst buildings that we have to invite our corporate users to the airport, and it's getting a fresh new look. So those projects will be done by August of this year.
Thank you.
Councilor Rapcasetti, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good to see you, Katie. This is a question for Mark Milne, unless you know it. What are the fund reserves?
I think they're just over 8 million, but I'll let Mark. Yes,
Right.
okay. Just over 8 million, and we've been able to resupply our reserves through the CARES Act and other grants that we have received because they've allowed us to use some of the funds for our operating budget, which we'll get reimbursed for. So for instance, we're using one of our grants to buy jet fuel, and that will reimburse our reserves.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rapcasetti. Any other questions on this item? Madam Vice Chair.
Hi, thank you. It's nice to see you. I just have concerns about 11 years, only 11 years for an HVAC thing. And I know it's not your fault, but I mean, what sort of guarantee do we have that we're not going to do this again?
So I thank you for the question. I agree with you. 11 years, I mean, you look at some of the school HVAC systems, and they've been there for 30 years, and they're still functioning. I just really, to be honest with you, I think it was a catastrophic failure in the type of system that was installed for that building. In fact, some of the HVAC contractors that we had come take a look at the system. They said that it was the completely wrong system for that building. The project itself was funded 100% by the FAA. It was a bidding process. I hate to say it, but we got the lowest bidder. So the system that we're looking at now will definitely have redundancies. We're looking at the problems that we're having with this system today, and we do not want to repeat that. So we're making sure that those bid specifications are clear in what we're looking for to replace the system.
The airport, always, the blow is always softened because we're typically responsible for only 5% of it, but it's still just such an egregious mistake, right?
I agree.
Yeah, so we need to make sure that we're not doing that again. Thank you.
Councilor Cusack, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Director. Just a quick question, using the word catastrophic about a building that obviously is a key, element within the region. Just how the systems are separated between this HVAC system in that particular building and all the other critical functions that happen in the tower. They are separate, right? There's no impact crossover between the job of keeping planes up and safe. Maybe just something that would, I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
It's a good question. In terms of what we've done to hold up the system for now, we have emergency functions in place to be able to supply air conditioning and heating to the tower. It's not ideal. We have some space heaters that they're using during the wintertime, and we have remote air conditioning units that we're putting in for now. We do have 2 floors within the terminal building that we have to make sure that the equipment stays cool, so we'll have air conditioning going into those rooms as well, and that's going to happen within the next couple of weeks. Yep.
Thank you, Councilor Cusack. Any other questions on this item? Okay. Not hearing any. Again, close the public hearing and move to a vote, please. Town Clerk Anquirk.
Councilors Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapcasetti.
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
That is 13 yes, it passes.
Thank you. Thank you. Next item of old business, Councilor Neary, please, 2023-120.
Yes, Mr. President. This is old business requiring a public hearing and a 2/3 roll call majority vote. It's item number 2023-120. It's an appropriation and loan order, in the amount of $525,000 for the purpose of funding the Master Plan Updates Project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024 through fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan, as written.
Second.
We have first and a second, and Director of Service for the rationale, please.
Sure. The environmental permitting associated with various airfield safety improvements that were proposed as part of the master plan update are currently going environmental review. This project request is for the permitting that would be associated with the after environmental review has been completed and as required by federal, state, and local agencies to implement the proposed projects. Just to give you a sense of where we are in that project, we have completed the airport master plan that was completed in May of 2022. What you see on the screen there shows that we had about a 12 to 18-month process for the master plan, where data was collected. We looked at forecast of future demand. We looked at our facility needs based on that forecast. We identified a range of alternatives for the facility needs to meet those needs. We identified preferred alternatives after looking through a series of alternatives that met our criteria or did not meet the criteria. And then we developed the airport layout plan that was eventually approved by the state and by the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration. Fast forward to today, we are now looking at the environmental review of those projects. Those projects will be under further review. So of the alternatives that were already looked at, we're doing a deeper dive as part of the environmental process. We've had 2 public meetings for the environmental process. Our next one is coming up in June, June 21st. We'll have 2 meetings. One will be via Zoom to give those that want to attend via Zoom, and the other one will be a public in-person meeting. The purpose of this project is for that permitting process. But I put the slide up here and then the next slide just to show you kind of where we are in the process, so you knew that we weren't just going to permitting without going through the analysis that we need to go through as part of the EA. What you see on your screen here tells you the difference between the master plan process and the environmental assessment, and then where we need to go from there. The master plan process, like I said, was completed in May of 2022. That identified a series of projects that were viable to potentially meet the needs of the airport within the next 10 and 20 years. From there, we screened certain projects out. For instance, we looked at a number of projects that dealt with a runway extension. We looked at over 25 different alternatives for that runway extension, screened out a number of them, and came up with a proposed one that went into the EA. So those projects, the line that you see there, the dashed line, now we're in the EA process where we're looking at further screening for the environmental impacts of those projects. We'll look at broader community concerns, questions and comments that are coming up from our public, and then we'll go into the full EA focus and a decision to be made on the EA for the projects. The projects that are included are the runway extension viability for a runway extension of 1533, taxiway geometry and modifications requirements that we need to make to meet federal aviation standards and requirements for 3 of our taxiways. Terminal improvements. During COVID, we realized that we actually did not have enough room in our terminal to socially distance people. So there are some modifications internally we need to make. And then apron and hangar development. That's what's included in the process. Again, funding is $525,000 was an estimate that we gave, that we made in July of 2022. 95% is funded by the FAA, with 5% by MassDOT Aeronautics, and the remainder for the airport. Just to go over project timelines again, I just want to reiterate this because I don't want people to just think we're going into permitting and we haven't gone through our process. So the yellow is really what has been completed to date, with looking at through the state office, the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. We received a lot of comments from our community in regards to that, so it required us to look at our scope again and change our scope so that we're looking at additional alternatives. We're in that process right now. The draft environmental impact report is where we're going to start providing information for the community in June at our June meeting. That will follow up with, after we receive comments, a final environmental impact report, and then a certificate. All of that has to happen before the permitting. So the permitting is the request under the CIP, is so that we have that in place, so once we get through this process, we can roll into permitting, and then it would be implementation of the projects that have been approved. Again, this is the funding cost for that project, and if there's any questions, I'll take those questions now.
Thank you, Director of Service. This is a public hearing. Anybody like to speak on this item? Anybody remote like to participate?
There is not.
I would close the public hearing, bring it back to council discussion. Looking to my left, looking to my right. Council Lucky, please.
I just want to say, I went to your MIPA meeting you had at the airport. It was very professionally done. There was a great, the room was packed to overflowing with folks there. I've read all the comments that were submitted through the MIPA process. And Katie was generous enough to take some of us who wanted to on an entire tour of the airport and pointed out, all the projects she has proposed. And I think I've taken a great interest in PFAS, and she showed us, where they used to do their AFFF testing and the things they've done. And I just can't have enough good things to say about Katie. I mean, I just was so impressed, having worked around airports most of my adult life. It's amazing, and the way you're doing this report and the scoping changes and things, it's really impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lucky. Anybody else? Comments, questions? Okay, not seeing any. Move to a vote, please. Town Clerk Anquirk.
Councilors Cusack,
Yes.
Rapcrissetti.
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnepp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum.
Yes.
That is 13 yes, it passes.
Thank you. Council Cullum, Madam Vice Chair. Item number 2023-121.
Yes, let's see. I'd like to open for a public hearing and a roll call two-thirds vote of the full council. Item number 2023-121, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $689,000 for the purpose of funding the security camera upgrades project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024, fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan as written.
Second.
First and second, and Director of Service with rationale, please.
Thank you. The airport security equipment must be maintained regularly at the airport to protect the airport staff and the traveling public. The project is to replace 40 airport cameras in various locations throughout the airport. It replaces old analog systems that we have in place right now with digital cameras. The funding was based on estimates that were provided to us by our engineers in recent projects over at Nantucket Airport and Martha's Vineyard that had the same type of project at $689,000, with 95% being funded by the state and the FAA, with a 5% match by the airport, so just over $34,000. I'll take you to the next graphic just to show you the difference between our digital cameras. Obviously, you can see on the left, the digital is very clear, it's very crisp. We can zoom in and zoom out with that camera. I cannot see a thing on the right-hand side. So it's used, obviously, for security mostly. We also use it for airfield conditions, so when we are out there plowing snow, we take a look at different locations on the airfield. We can do that from the office or from anywhere. It's a digital system. It's web-based. If I was in Florida, I can look at it from Florida. We also look at tenant activity during our busy season, so we can see how congested one area over another might be for aircraft parking, and then we'll transition people if we need to transition people or planes to a different location. So it's a great system. The vast majority is really, though, for security, but we have multiple uses for it.
Thank you for that. Anybody like to speak on this item? Anybody like to participate remotely?
There is not.
Okay. Not seeing any. Council discussion, please. Looking to my left. Security cameras. Looking to my right. Okay. Not seeing any. Move to a vote, please. Town Clerk Anquirk.
Councilors Rapcrissetti.
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Atzelis.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Cullum.
Yes.
Cusack.
Yes.
That's 13 yes, it passes.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Starr, please. Next item, 2023-122.
Okay, this is a public hearing, roll call vote, two-thirds vote of the full council. This is item number 2023-122, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $383,000 for the purpose of funding the replacement of snow removal equipment project as outlined in the fiscal budget 2024-2028 capital improvement plan.
Second.
We have a number of snow removal equipment replacements that are coming over the next couple of years. It must be maintained regularly and replaced as necessary. Vast majority of our equipment is eligible for federal funding. Some of it is not. So we just try to make sure that we use our equipment to the best of our ability, especially during a snow season. The project is to replace a 2006 SRE equipment, a 10-wheeler with plow and a sander. The funding estimate was provided in October of 2002 and is $383,000. Typically, when we're replacing equipment, if we can keep it to maintain the facility, we will. If we do not need it, we will trade it, we will sell it, or we'll see if there's another department that wants to take the surplus property. That's all I have for that.
Thank you, Director Service. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on this item? Not seeing any. Anybody like to participate remotely?
There is no one for this item.
Close the public hearing and bring it back to council discussion. Anybody? Snow removal. Anybody? Okay. Not seeing any. Move to a vote, please. Town Clerk and Quirk.
Councilors Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Cullum.
Yes.
Cusack.
Yes.
Rappacetti.
Yes.
That's 13 yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Schnapp, please. Item number 2023-123.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an item of old business requiring a public hearing, a roll call vote of two-thirds of the full council. Item number 2023-123, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $1,120,580 for the purpose of funding the snow removal equipment storage facility project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024 fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan as written.
Second.
First and a second. Director Service with rationale, please.
Sure. We maintain 639 acres at the airport facility, plus 8 structures, and it requires a lot of equipment and vehicles for us to do that. We have snow removal equipment, mowing equipment, pavement maintenance equipment, operations and maintenance vehicles, building supplies, and small tools and equipment. We have all of this equipment in about 5 different locations on the airport. Some of it is outside, which is the problem. We spend a lot of money on some of this equipment, and then it just sits outside and it rusts. So we need to have some type of covered storage or shelter for this equipment to make it last as long as we can. The project is to develop a storage facility to house this equipment for everything that we currently have outdoors. We're in the process of identifying what that square footage would be for that facility. I don't think we'll be able to fit even all of our equipment in, depending on the size of the facility. But we do have some hangars and other locations that we can still store some of this equipment in over the wintertime. So this is going to look at what possibility we have and what square footage we have to be able to enable us to do that. The funding right now is based on estimates of October of 2022, just over $1 million. And funding is coming from various sources. Some of it is coming from the most recent grants that we did receive from the federal government. Any comments or questions?
Thank you, Director Service. Anybody want to speak on this item? Anybody like to speak remotely?
There's no one for this item.
So we close the public hearing, bring back to council discussion. Anybody to my left? Council Clark, please.
Thank you very much, President Levesque, and thank you very much, Director Service. I'm happy to see that the funding is 100% covered by the ARPA grant, but if your estimates don't match what the actual costs are you going to, how do you find the money?
Right, so we'll have to do a specification and understand what the size requirements are. Once we identify our various sizes, it's probably going to be a small, medium, and large, and see which one fits within that grant funding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Clark. Anybody else on this side? How about anybody on this side? Okay, not seeing any. We'll move to a vote, please, Town Clerk and Quirk.
Councilors Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapкраsetti,
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes,
That's 13 yes, it passes.
thank you. Council Starr, please. Next item, 2023-124.
This is referred to a public hearing, roll call, 2/3 vote of the full council. This is number 2023-124, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $550,000 for the purpose of funding the electrical aircraft support vehicle and charging station project as outlined in the fiscal year 2024-2028 capital improvement plan.
Second.
First and a second, Director Service.
Sure, thank
Second
you.
to last.
Electric aviation, I know, is new, but we have tenants and users that are very keen on transitioning to this form of fuel. The airport is looking at charging stations with a dual use. We've talked to several companies that are developing electric aircraft, but also know that there's a dual use option for vehicles as well. The funding is for $505,000 based on estimates that we received in October of 2022. We are recipients in 2023 of, and the only airport, I will say, to receive a US DOT SMART program grant to develop a smart grid at the airport. I was thrilled to receive this grant. We did it in unison with the CCRTA. We thought that coming in together as two transportation entities that are both looking for electric aviation or electric vehicle use right across the street from each other, that we could look at a power storage facility that would benefit both entities. When you start to think about rapid recharge that is needed for electric aviation and for buses or other vehicles, we could be in a situation where our grid cannot support us. I know that one of our companies, Cape Air, is very keen on transitioning to electric aviation. It would be a game changer for their flights that they perform at the airport. 50% of our operations are by Cape Air. So this would be huge for the airport to go in this direction. The $1.9 million that we did receive is a planning grant to assess the project and determine what is needed to implement a smart grid program at the airport. It would include most likely putting in additional solar, whether it be canopy solar over vehicle parking lots or some type of wind power. We would be looking into that. And it would also support the charging stations that we want to put in at the airport. Electric aviation is 2025, 2026 timeframe, so now is the time for us to proceed forward with a project like this. Any questions or comments?
Anybody like to speak in public? Anybody like to speak remotely?
There's no one for this item.
Thank you. Close the public hearing. Council discussion. Looking to my left. Looking to my right. Council Shaughnessy, please.
Just as a point of order, President Levesque, it was read into the record at 550,000 instead of 505,000.
Thank you.
As noted, thank you.
And also, Director Service, I think it's great that you guys came together and we got that grant, so very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Shaughnessy. Council Starr.
Thank you. Just as a point of clarification, so there's going to be some kind of, if it's a smart grid, there's a battery system involved?
Right.
Somewhere between the transportation center and the airport?
Yes, so the planning project will look at what location would be ideal. Mildred's old lot comes to mind as an ideal spot as a location for that. If you look at the system that was put in Provincetown, think of it from a size-wise, it would be something similar to that. The planning project will identify where the best location is, though.
Okay? I would put it away from airplanes, Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Council Starr. Any other questions on this side? Coming back to the left. Okay, not seeing any. Again, close the public hearing. Move to a vote, please.
Councilors Mendes,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapgrassetti,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke.
Yes.
That's 13 yes, it passes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Excellent, thank you. Next item of old business, Council Cusack, if you could please, item number 2023-125.
Yeah, my pleasure, Mr. President. This is old business requiring a public hearing and a roll call of 2/3 vote of the full council. This is item 2023-125, an appropriation and loan order in the amount of $355,000 for the purpose of funding the Jet A fuel storage tank project, as outlined in the fiscal year 2024 to 2028 capital improvement plan.
Second.
First and a second, back to you, Director Service.
Thank you. So obviously, in the previous slide, I was talking about electric aviation, and now I'm transitioning to Jet A fuel storage. So the airport is seeking a transition to electric, yes, but the aircraft that use Jet A fuel are not there from a technology standpoint to implement any type of electric aviation. They're just too heavy to be able to do that. In fact, some of the aircraft that we're looking at for electric aviation are less than 9 passenger seats, and they're grappling, trying to find the best way to move that forward, to move that dial. So we're not going to see it anytime soon for the Jet A fleet unless it's a small jet aircraft that takes it. So jet fuel users will continue to use their jet fuel source as the technology, like I said, is not there yet. We've seen increases in fuel sales over the past couple of years. Our current storage is 60,000 gallons. The project would be to include one additional 20,000-gallon tank. It's an above-ground tank. It would go on the existing fuel farm pad, so it would meet the protections of DEP and EPA to safely handle any spill containment that might be necessary. We also have an oil water separator that's associated with this system, so it would meet all of that environmental criteria that we would need to meet, as we already do for the 60,000 gallons that we do have. Any comments or questions?
Thank you for the rationale. And is a public hearing. Anybody like to speak on this item? If not,
There is no one for this item.
thank you very much. Closing the public hearing, bringing back to council discussion. Looking to my left, anybody like to mention jet fuel tanks? Anybody? Council Lucky, please.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Who are you selling the fuel to? Because you said it's not Cape Air. Is it JetBlue, or is it who are you selling it to?
So the vast majority of the traffic that comes into the airport is corporate traffic. So obviously, Cape Air's flights, their aircraft take avgas. They do not need Jet A fuel. So we're supplying corporate aircraft, JetBlue, private aircraft that are coming into the facility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Council Lucky. Any other questions on this side? Moving to my left. Okay, not seeing any. Move to a vote, please. Town Clerk and Quirk.
Councilors Neary,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Atzelis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Cusack,
Yes.
Rapgrassetti,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
13 yes, it passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And just want to say thanks, Town Manager Mark Ells, to all your staff and all the directors that put this is a long, arduous task that it takes to put the CIP project together, and really makes it easy and digestible for us to do our homework as counselors and get questions answered and things of that nature. So just want to say thank you, Director Milne. You are obviously a huge part of this, and if not the part of this, and we just want to thank you for that, and appreciate you all being here. Mr. Prescott, Thank you for attending and being part of the process. I don't know if you're ever going to, I'm always wondering if you're going to come and speak during public comment, but that's okay. I'm sure there'll be a moment. That being said, again, appreciate you being with us. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
First and a second, and if you can signify your approval by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Good night, everybody.